Agenda today and a good audience, and we welcome all of you here. We want to start our meeting with an introduction of the commissioners and then UDOT people and then elected officials who are here. So let's start over here with Donna. Introduce yourself, please. A couple of housekeeping things. Because this is being streamed live on the internet, we ask those who address the commission to come to the podium and speak very clearly into the microphone so the thousands who are watching this will be able to pick up who is speaking. We can be found on the internet in all of our meetings by going to YouTube. It's YouTube/UDOT, or you can go to UDOT homepage and find us through the Transportation Commission. So any of our meetings are streamed live, as is this one. So please, when you address the commission, do so loudly and up here in the front so you can be seen and heard. That introduction, I think, will get us going, and let's introduce the commission, then UDOT, and then the elected officials.
Thank you. I'm Donna Law. I'm a commissioner at large, and my home is in Cedar City, Utah.
Good morning. My name is Nadia.
You're going to have to speak really loud.
Good morning. Can you hear me back there? Thank you. As you can see from the sheer number of attendants, Mr. Chairman, that they're here to say we love you, UDOT. And we love you even more for bringing some heavenly rain and snow. Thank you for this. And I just want to also declare boldly that I am from sunny St. George. And yesterday it still was sunny in St. George, and people were like, thank you.
My name is Wayne Barlow. I live in Cache Valley and or Bear Lake more often. And I represent Region 1, which is the 6 northernmost counties of the state.
My name is Kent Millington. I represent Region 3, Juab to Daggett counties across the central part of the state.
Good morning, and thank you so much for coming. My name is Lou Kramer, Commissioner at Large. I live in Salt Lake City, but my family helped settle Southern Utah, and it's a total privilege and honor to be here today. Thank you for taking good care of this beautiful part of the world.
My name is Danny McConkey, and I'm Commissioner at Large residing in Washington County.
We have one commissioner who is not here, Megan Holbrook, who is ill and unable to join us. She represents Region 2, Salt Lake, Tooele, and Summit County.
Joe, you're doing a nice job with this. Hi, I'm Carlos Braceras. I'm the Executive Director of the Utah Department of Transportation.
Shane Marshall, I'm the Deputy Director with UDOT.
Let's have all of the UDOT personnel introduce themselves, please.
Grant Potter, UDOT Communications.
And I'm Joe Walker. I'm the Director of Communications for UDOT.
You got Michelle.
Michelle Geronimo, Commission.
Bill Lawrence, UDOT Programming.
Bob Helly, TIP Coordinator.
You guys, just speak loud.
Rick, you're
Director.
Robert Dow, Region 4 Traffic Operations. Police Ministry of Operations.
Speak up.
Then let's have the elected officials who are here introduce themselves.
Mayor Blackwell.
John Bramwell, Mayor Preston.
Mayor Blackwell.
Robert Campbell, Apple Valley Mayor.
Jeff Dowd, Rockland Council.
Debbie Cox, Apple Valley Council. Mrs. Oaks, Springdale.
Dan Smith, Mayor Springdale.
Zachary Winston, Washington County Commissioner.
Troy Dollister, Washington City Council.
Are there other elected officials that are here?
Tina County, Morgan County Council.
John Barber, Morgan County Council.
Thank you. We also want to recognize the presence of our partners from the FHWA, Ivan Marrero and Brigitte Mandel. Please stand and be acknowledged. We appreciate your presence here today. Thank you very much. Now, I want to turn a few minutes over to our host mayor, Mayor Smith, please.
It's best you because we're welcoming you.
They don't hear me, they hear me too much. We would love to welcome you to Springdale. We noticed yesterday that you had rainstorm and through everything, and then Nagi tells me that you went down to St. George and saw some sunshine, and then as you look up, you can see our winter storm. So this is a typical winter in Zion. So we've shown you all 4 seasons this last 2 days. I'm glad that you're here. The other thing that we're glad that you're here is this is the most rain I think that we've had all winter long. So we appreciate you bringing all that. Now that you can go home and go back to sunshine and finish our road. But we'd like to thank you very much for this beautiful project that we have with SR9. I know Sunrock was really concerned about you coming down and seeing it, and I said, well, I'll tell them that you're doing a great job, and they are. They've been very good. UDOT Region 4, Chris Hall, probably have to thank him for the 2.5 years that we've been working on the project. And we'd like to invite you back down after the project's over with, so you can see what a great job it really did turn out to be. And glad you're here. Hope you enjoy the rest of your meeting and safely go back to your homes.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that very much. Now we'll get into some of the business of our commission meeting. We have some reports first. We've got 3 reports that we will hear, and then we have a time for public comment. And I understand that there's a few of you here who are willing to do some public comment. But preceding that, we'll have a series of reports. I think our first report is on Morgan County Interchange, and Chris Peterson, Region 1 Director, will give us that report.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You can drive with the, are you wanting PowerPoint or?
This is good. It looks like I know what I'm doing. Is that fun?
Do you have the mouse?
Okay, so Commissioners, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and present to you this morning status and update on the interchange in Morgan County. It's the Mountain Green Interchange, and we've put together a little presentation for you so you kind of know the status of where they're at. We're grateful that the Commissioners are here to make sure that I don't misspeak, right? And I'm sure that if I do, they'll let you know that in a couple of minutes for sure. When it's time for open comment. So Mountain Green on I-84 it's a small portion of Morgan County along I-84, and it's in the middle of the area where the road turns and goes north up to Yaga Valley and Snow Basin. Recently, we've been asked to look at and validate the need for a future interchange there in Morgan. So on this slide, I've just put up a couple of different studies of what's on the long-range plan for this area. And so you'll notice on the bottom right, Phase 3 I-84 new interchange. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the studies that our planning division has done in preparation for some work that we're looking at as part of the future study. So anyway, so what we did as Morgan County's been asking us to look at this interchange, we took the Utah statewide travel model and we evaluated it in 2 different ways. We evaluated it based on a typical planning process, the statewide long-range planning process, looking at normal growth rate for what we would see in that area based on what we planned. And then Morgan County brought an econometric study to us and said, hey, this is how we think it's really going to grow. And so we evaluated the traffic needs in that area based on either of those two scenarios. And what we did is we looked at three different options or three different types of interchange solutions that might be accommodated in that area based on those two different growth scenarios. I just want to talk to you for a couple minutes about what those results were. Now, we looked at three different options, but today I'm just going to talk about one option due to the limited amount of time that I have for each one of those scenarios. So I have more info if you want it, and I put that in your packets. You should be able to go refer to that in the future if you have any questions. But just to try and be concise on time today, I'm just going to show the output for those looks for one of the options on each of those cases. So first of all, based on the typical growth and what we're looking at for the statewide long-range plan, normal growth, these are the growth rates, the growth numbers in jobs and households and employment in that area. So if you look at household growth for Ogden Valley, Snow Basin, Mountain Green, and the employment growth in Ogden Valley, Snow Basin, Mountain Green, you can see that there's some growth anticipated and expected. For the most part, that growth is long-range plan we expect it to happen in Mountain Green with some jobs and employment up in Ogden Valley. I think the jury's still out a little bit with Snow Basin. So what we did is we looked at the statewide long-range plan growth rate. We said, let's look at what would happen for the existing interchange that's there and how would it function and how would it serve if the growth occurred the way the long-range plan expects it to grow. And so we use that modeling, and if you look, and the important slide is the one on the right, it shows the number of lanes and the level of service that we would expect to see if the growth rate is consistent with the long-range plan growth rate. And you can see that we're looking at 4 lanes on what they call the old highway, State Route 167. But you'll see the level of service B. That's the key part of this slide. And based on if things grow the way the plan right now expects them to grow, you're going to see a level of service B, which is great. The level of service is B. That's I like to equate it to schooling, but in reality, level service B is something that we should all aspire to on most of our roadways. Very few of our roadways along the Wasatch Front are sort of the level service B. So we looked at that and said, okay, that's great. But now Morgan County brought this econometric study and said, hey, we think growth is going to be higher than what the long-range plan is showing. So would you please evaluate that? So what we did is we took their numbers, and if you look specifically at the household growth and the employment growth of Snow Basin, you can see significant changes in numbers there, as well as significant changes in the number of jobs and households in Mountain Green as well. Ogden Valley doesn't quite change as much based on the numbers that they gave us, but you can see there's significant changes in the numbers of jobs and employment. And so we took those and we put those into the model, and we said, okay, let's look at the new interchange that's proposed there, and what would the level of service be? So again, go to the right-hand slide, and you can see that 4 lanes would function at a level of service B, and you'll notice with the growth, if the growth occurs the way the econometric study indicated, we'd be at a level of service E on I-84. If we eliminated the existing interchange and just built a new interchange, we'd be at a level of service D with 4 lanes there on the new connector road between there and Trapper Wood. So these are very different numbers. Excuse me, I got a cough. Sorry, I had a cold like Commissioner Barlow. It just doesn't seem to want to go away. And so we looked at that. These are just very different numbers. And so when we met with Morgan County, we presented this to them. They said, well, yeah, that's good, but you haven't even captured all the growth because there's growth in other areas too that we need to add. And so we said we probably need to evaluate this a little bit further. So let me go to this slide. So currently, right now, based on the 2 scenarios that we've evaluated and ran, this interchange ranks in phase 3 as number 3. And if you look at the current preliminary score for prioritization, it ranks either on a 7 or a 15, depending on which scenario you look at, whether it's the long-range planning scenario or whether it's the Morgan growth rate scenario. So that's where it currently ranks as number 7. If we add all the numbers that Morgan gave us, it moves up to a 15. And if you look at that, you can see the other projects in phase 1 and phase 2. and phase 3 and how it relates to those. So based on the information that we identified as we did these two studies, we went with Morgan, and I wanted to update you on our recommendations about moving forward. So first, what we found is that the existing interchange upgrades are in the unfunded phase of state line long range plan. That's phase 3. And excuse me. There's additional growth that we expect and anticipate in the Wasatch Peaks development, which occurs to the south of the river and south of the railroad. And depending on how that development occurs, both interchanges may be warranted. Okay, not just the new interchange, not just the old one, but it may actually be both of those two interchanges, depending on how that growth occurs. We don't know yet. But what we do know is that as of what we see right now, the need for the new interchange is driven by economic development, but not by current traffic needs and traffic growth projections. So we recommend the next steps. We have begun and already started, so maybe that first bullet shouldn't be recommended, but that's the way I'll present it to you today. We recommend completing a corridor study to look at this area and make sure that we're capturing all the growth and the growth correctly. And we're identifying what the goals are that the county has for this area, the residents and all that, and trying to put together a concise, unified plan for that section of corridor. We plan on continuing with Morgan County to preserve right-of-way in the event the new interchange is occurring, and we have begun the corridor preservation process. Preserve the corridor for that future road extension down from Trappist Lee down to the future interchange by corridor. We're moving forward with that as we speak right now. We have all the documents prepared and we have those out for appraisals. And then what we would recommend is that once we complete the corridor study later this year, that we evaluate the results from that for further consideration, whether or not an EIS should be considered or funded. And also, I think we should note that Senate Bill 136 requires modifications to our prioritization process. So we would recommend that we go through that process and see how that changes this scoring and see if that moves up about a 7 or 8 as well. So that's the quick, short. There's just so many people here who would like to talk about other things besides Morgan. I don't want to shortchange the Morgan topic, but at the same time, I don't want to upset neighbors. So any questions that you might have for me?
Just one comment. I
Yes.
think the fact that we actually were there on site, talked with Ken and John, it made a huge difference in our understanding of the issue. So I appreciate that. Additional knowledge was much helpful. Very helpful for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time we will ask the Morgan County people if they have comments on this information that's been prepared.
Thank you for letting us be here. I am so sorry I missed the tour yesterday. I know I would have made it so much more fun. But I did drive through that rain, so I was feeling your pain. So I just, a couple of comments, because I can't let Chris go unrebutted on anything. We really want to emphasize that we know that this isn't just about traffic count. If it was just about the traffic count, we wouldn't be before you. That the economic impact of this interchange is what we're really talking about. The economic multiplier for putting this in, as was illustrated with Katrubis Motors, when that freeway access, that freeway look, is a big deal for a community and for a business. And this has the ability to really be it's the linchpin for Mountain Green and for Morgan County and helping us grow in our commercial tax base, where we have been growing so rapidly in just our residential. So I just wanted to leave that as that. We really believe that the EIS and the, what do they call that little listening, that corridor study can happen at the same time. And that gets us farther down the road, because the sooner this happens for us, the better that economic impact is. I'm gonna let John talk about the money part of that for the state, because John, he knows this one.
Well, yeah, I'm out of money. That's the problem. But thank you for letting us speak. We appreciate it, and also thank you for coming there in April or August of last year. It was great to have you there. Part of the thing that we're looking at is this, where this development is coming around this interchange is already under a development agreement, and it's going to depict how that development agreement goes forward. Currently, there's 537 houses or residential units that can go in this acreage that around that interchange. And that's all that's in the development agreement. So there will be no commercial. We're working with the developers to add commercial. And if they do add commercial there, it will bring it to about $175 million worth of development, which to the county would mean about $800,000, and the state makes out like abandonment. That's because they get the majority of it. So we think it's a really good investment for you. We'd like to, as Tina said, we'd like to see this as a joint deal where the study's done and the EIS are done at the same time. If you guys can find money to do that, we'd really appreciate it, because at the end of the day, this is going to help Morgan County become whole, especially with jobs, which is what the governor's looking for. We think it's going to be 1,200, depending on what Snow Basin does. It could go as high as 4,000 jobs. So we appreciate the time. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak, and hopefully we get some sun today. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Good to see you. Okay, let's move forward then with our next agenda item. We have a recreational hotspots update from Nathan Lee.
Thank you, Commissioner. Great to be here this morning. I'm following up this morning to come and give you an update on where we're at in terms of the recreational hotspots. As you asked as a commission, you sought a way that we could capture all of the public comments in regards to the effort to program this $100 million as part of the legislative session of 2017. And in order to do that, we've tried to do a few things differently than before. One of the main things that we've tried to do is put it out in a front area that's easy to find. And so on UDOT's main homepage, right in the middle, as we're looking today, here just down in the middle, there's an area that's called the Recreational Hotspots Study. And that particular area contains all of those main components that people need. And now that the next 2 months are here, and we're going to be bringing updates, we've put it back there in the front area so that people are able to respond to those updates and give you information. So when you click on that, it opens this page. And this page is the overview of those recreational hotspots. And for the audience sake, I'll just review what they can expect and where we're going with this. Senate Bill 277 in the 2000 legislative session appropriated $100 million for the Transportation Commission to identify the appropriate place to place improvements that would help transportation in a few different ways. In review of that process, here's kind of what has taken place today. First of all, we solicited input across the state. We received hundreds of comments, both in written form and hundreds more at public meetings. Those comments identified 16 areas, 16 major areas that recreation and tourism had particular needs related to traffic that could be improved. So those areas were prioritized, and they were prioritized based on the criteria that came from the bill, which related to tourism and recreation first, and then what goes on in terms of economic development and congestion because of the traffic situations at those locations. Giving that information and giving the comments, there were 352 comments originally received in written form, as well as many others that were received publicly. And those comments then were taken, and information and public open periods of opportunity were given to identify where we should move forward. At the commission, you recall that 4 areas were identified: the Zions area, the Arches Moab area, the Little Cottonwood Canyon area, and the Bear Lake area. Those 4 were identified. So as you've asked us to go out and to start the work as a DOT on gathering information and working with those communities and identifying what they need. We've set up a set of next steps that we'll plan to follow. First of all, in today's meeting, here at the March Commission meeting, we'll give you a brief update on the Little Cottonwood Canyon environmental impact statement that's going on and on the Zions area update. Next month in April, we'll give you an update on the Arches and Moab area and on the Bear Lake area. And then following in May, UDOT will come with recommendations of projects that ought to be funded within those study areas, and the Transportation Commission can at that point decide if you'd like to vote or move forward, take public comment, and hopefully in June you'll be able to take some potential action on moving forward with those items. That's the goal that we have. Now, for people that are looking for information about where we've been, down here in the downloads on the bottom left is all of the presentation information that was given from the beginning. So that scoring, that criteria, all those things that you did in the past are all stored in there. Any of the public comment, if you want to know if your comment's the same, if you want to add to that comment, etc., they're all stored over on the right-hand side. So that information is available for the public. It's easy to find from our website, and it identifies those 4 areas in which we hope to cover over the next 2 months. Given that's the case, I'm going to give you a brief update on the Little Cottonwood Canyon EIS. And this is how all those work. You just click on the story up on that top left, and it opens whichever one of those 4 you want to look at. So we've opened the Little Cottonwood Canyon, and we're doing an environmental impact study there. You funded $2 million to do that impact study in the canyon and to identify what was needed there. The study area for that looks like this. It covers from the Big Cottonwood Canyon, the Wasatch Boulevard area, all the way up to the end of that road at the town of Alta, and covering that particular location. What's going on in terms of the EIS and its timeline is that they would like to complete that document in this manner. They're doing the public scoping right now. There's an open house on, I think it's March 10th. Let me just check here. Yeah, there's an open house on April 10th. Sorry, March 10th is fast. Yeah, there was an open house that nobody made it. No. The public open house for this will be on April 10th, and it's at Cottonwood Heights, and the information will be taken from the public specifically there, or they can comment at any time. And that's part of the public scoping period, where they start to present the purpose and need and identify those items that are there. We hope to have the purpose and need defined sometime between the spring and summer of this year. We hope to have the alternatives development and the refinement process, much like we're doing with the hotspots, that you then refine down the choices within that environmental document of what we would do by fall of 2018, and they hope to release a draft EIS out to the public sometime between the winter and summer of 2019, depending on the number of comments and the complexity that's there. And we expect that the final public hearings and comment periods for those will extend through summer of 2019. And then hopefully the final EIS will be in the spring of 2020, which would allow at that point construction to be funded on whatever the preferred alternative would be. That's the schedule that's identified there. You'll get a business item that's later today that asks for additional funding. I believe it's $3 million for the second phase of the EIS in order to accomplish all this and do it in that time frame. That's the schedule then that's there. The open house again is on April 10th to allow people to do those items. And if they want to comment, they're able to put comments in again from here at the specific location or from the project's website. They can comment. There's a number of ways they can submit the comments. They all end up in the same place. So that's the overview of where we're at in terms of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Are there any questions on Little Cottonwood? And at this time, what I'd like to do is invite Rick Torgerson, Region 4, to come up, and he's going to give the overview of the Zions area.
Thanks, Nate. So, big crowd today. Do you get a picture of this? Oh, have you? So, yeah, the Zions area. So, Zions was one of those 4 areas that was identified by the commissioners in October. Is that when we identified? So, after October, we were asked to take a look at the Zions area for potential for hotspot funding and figure out what options may be available in the arches or the Zions area for potential. I get arches and Zions mixed up, so we're doing both of them at the same time. So I'll give you a little history of where we've been since October to today, and then I'll kind of step through some of the project ideas that are coming up from that study and kind of who was involved in that study. So obviously, this is the total recreational visits into the Zions area, and you guys have seen a chart similar to this in the past. This is coming off of Zions National Park website. You can see the tremendous amount of growth in visitation to the national park, specifically in the last 4 or 5 years, where the growth is nearing 4.5 million people. I'm not sure, Jeff, are you at 5 million yet? Not yet, but getting pretty close. So obviously with that, there's a lot of challenges in the area. We took the recreational hotspot guidance and that was in Senate Bill 277, which identified 3 key components to use for funding of 277 money: reduce congestion, support economic development, and increase recreation and tourism opportunities. We took that and went out with a group locally here, mayors along the corridor. So Mayor Smith of Springdale, Mayor Leach of Rockville, Mayor Brommel of Hurricane, Mayor Pike of St. George, as well as county staff and county commissioners and UDOT staff, and further defined what that means for the Zions area, which in this area they looked at reduced congestion as enabling and enhance travel choices, improve operations, consistency with strategic capacity improvements and planning for the local area. Support economic development, enhance current and future economic activity in the corridor, enhance connectivity and access to major recreational sites, enhance workforce accessibility. That's one of the challenges here in Zions, is actually just the workforce to get in and out to service all the restaurants and hotels with not a lot of housing here in the Springdale area. The increased recreation and tourism opportunities, enhance visitor experience and opportunities, increase number of year-round transportation options, which Zions has done that. It's not necessarily just a 6-month thing, it's almost a year-round opportunity here in Zions now. And the last one, enhance access to recreation outside of Zions National Park to try to take some pressure off of the main portion of Zions National Park. So those were the goals, and then we used the decision win system similar to what you guys have used and scored the projects. We had this big list of projects that I'll go through here in a second. We won't go through all of them, but a lot of these ended up being combined when we started looking at the actual projects and how they come out. So we'll jump into some of those projects that came up, and most of these we kept a really broad look of the Zions area. Didn't put any real constraints around it and kept it really open to say what could help the Zions area. So we kept it pretty wide open and came up with multiple projects that I'll talk about here. So the first one that we'll talk a little bit about is the Big Plains Road and SR9 connector. This was a project that I think there's a lot of people here that want to talk about this, so I'll explain a little bit about this. This comes in off of SR 59 Apple Valley and comes across the mesa, the Big Plains Mesa, and then drops into the town of Rockville, which is right here. If we zoom in, this current Big Plains alignment skirts along the river and then comes across the Grafton Bridge, the single lane bridge that you guys have approved for a rehab project now to keep that bridge in its current configuration. These alignments are not set in stone. This is kind of high-level planning type work, but part of this project would say if this was a project to be considered, that there'd need to be a new connection to SR9, and that's the purple line. We come over and cross the Virgin River at another location and then connect onto SR9 with full intersection improvements at that location. So
That would be on the west side of the
this would be on the west side of Rockville, yeah. So that's kind of the type of project that it's looking at. This one's estimated, between 18 and 23 million dollars. So it's a pretty expensive project for 9.4 miles of paving. To pave that, it would be a paved road at 28 feet wide, and there could be some substantial or needed improvements on alignment and curvature across that section if this was to be selected as a project to fund. This one certainly is one of the key pieces in the hotspot discussion was a workforce accessibility, and it was viewed as this being an opportunity for people in Hilldale and Colorado City to access Springdale for a workforce, and it cuts about 23 miles off of dropping all the way down the Hurricane Cliffs and coming back around through the Hurricane and up the SR9 corridor. So you can see you would have to do that route to cut across. So one of the main things there was this could provide an opportunity for an additional workforce in Springdale, and the businesses around Zions. So that was one of them. The second project that has been under discussion for multiple years now through the Metropolitan Planning Organization has been the St. George to Springdale transit line. So this is a startup scenario for a transit system that runs from St. George all the way to Springdale. And when I say startup, there's two scenarios in there. There'd be a startup scenario and then a full-blown scenario. The startup scenario is a 5-bus system, 2 of them running on an express service and 2 of them running on a local service line, and then 1 is a backup in case one of those goes down. This would be a 40-mile transit system that would connect St. George all the way into Springdale. The capacity of the bus would be 20 to 30. It's anticipated that it would free up 300 to 400 stalls in the Springdale area every day, which is one of the challenges right now in Springdale is just parking, and could relieve a 7 to 10% traffic reduction is what the study showed on the SR9 corridor by having people in the buses. One thing to note with this construction project that Chris Hall will talk about here in a minute in Springdale is we've made with that project some major decisions with Springdale City and Mayor Smith to basically paid parking will be moving forward on Springdale Main Street, and with the development of more of a walkable community, biking, additional sidewalk width for more pedestrians, there will be a loss of 200 to 300 parking stalls on Main Street itself. And then the rest will go to a paid parking system. But several other developers in the city have been working on replacing those stalls with local options for parking in Springdale town itself that could result in around 800 additional parking locations versus the 2 or 3 that we were removing with the project. So once that project is complete, there's a shift in the change in the way that Springdale will operate, which we see as one of the main congestion mitigation techniques that will help the Springdale area, just because people aren't driving up and down looking for that one stall on Main Street and all the friction on Main Street looking for a parking stall. They'll at least know where these parking lots are at, and they'll go to those parking lots and then walk and bike and whatever to the destinations and use the shuttle system that is set up in Springdale. So this transit system, the estimated startup cost is $13 to $15 million to get the 5-bus scenario running. There's a lot of work if this was one of the projects to go, and we've got a meeting after the commission meeting today to talk a little bit more about how this could potentially look and feel if it's a part of the SunTrans system or a whole separate system. There would be a lot of information that we have to continue to work on if this is a project that we were looking to move forward. Another project that was identified was Sheep Bridge Road. This is similar to the Big Plains Road, just further down the hillside. So you can see there's the Big Plains Road. This one's at the top of the Hurricane Cliffs and skirts over and comes in just west of the town of Virgin. And a lot of mountain biking, camping, and that type of stuff happens over here. It's $4 million, $5 million project, 4.9 million. Or 4.9 mile connector to make this connection, and has similar type impacts to the areas as the Big Plains Road has. Another project that came up to help with this whole traffic and parking area is some type of a park and ride lot near the Rockville area. There's not been a site identified for a park and ride lot, but the idea is that paid parking in Springdale area and a free park and ride lot somewhere around Rockville with some type of a shuttle system to take people from Rockville into the shuttle system in Springdale. That could be a private service, that could be a public-private partnership, or a full-blown extension of the current Springdale line that exists today for the shuttle system. We have not identified, which would be which way to go. It's estimated just a park and ride lot for 10 acres could be around $3 million if you had some bathrooms and facilities there for that park and ride lot, and that would be about a 500 stall park and ride lot. The other projects that we came up with were continuing our corridor. We had a corridor study on SR9 completed about 4 years ago, and we've been continuing to make improvements to the SR9 corridor. And Chris will talk about a project that we're in design now and hope to be under construction this summer for a couple of passing lanes between Virgin and Rockville. These next three were the remaining projects on that corridor study for SR9 improvements. The first one being passing lanes from between Virgin and the top of the Hurricane Twist. This will be a $3 million project to provide passing opportunities once you get up the canyon between the top of the Hurricane Twist and Virgin. Another project would be to extend the one that comes up the top of the Hurricane Twist that we showed you on the tour yesterday that just stops slightly short of where we would like it to be, and it's only a $600,000 project. We'd like to extend it further to get it up and over that grade. And then the last project is actually shoulder widening to improve the shoulder width coming up the Hurricane Twist, and it's a pretty expensive project, nearly $5 million. Just to get adequate shoulders to accommodate active transportation and cyclists that are trying to visit the Zions area from the hurricane and hurricane. And then some other projects that we didn't put all the full map to that we came up with was an active transportation project. This would be a full-blown separated bike path that would connect Hurricane all the way to Springdale. It could be upwards of $10 million. There has not been an alignment identified, but it would serve the area using bicycles or e-bikes or any other method of walking that would connect the Hurricane Valley all the way to Springdale. Another one that was brought up was the Co-op Road to make improvements and safety improvements up the Co-op Road. This would just be to open up additional areas in the Zions area to try to drop pressure off of Main Canyon and Zions and try to get people to access other areas, other recreational opportunities there. And then another one that was a very interesting one was the park data natural metering system. So what this would be is a project that would basically put counters at all the major trailheads and any parking locations, anything else, and give the public via an app live information about any situation that happens there. And then you could actually show past history of when heavy times are of getting on either the buses like that picture shows or the trailhead, and you can start changing the travelers' behaviors and going at different times and kind of metering out the peak season in a way. But I don't think it would decrease the amount of people coming, but it would give them more opportunities to maybe have a different experience in the park and in Springdale based on the data that you provide on the phone. So this has an opportunity out there. The park is certainly working right now on a couple of different scenarios with metering systems to monitor and put out information. If this project, we could certainly do just a public or an RFP, request for proposals, if we wanted to go this direction and seek technology proposals on how to do this. So that's kind of where we're at with the hotspot area for Zions right now. And what I'll do now is I'll any questions on the Zions hotspot right now?
Questions from the commissioners?
Okay. Stan, do you know that? Or Jeff, what is the forecast? You guys forecasting any numbers for visitation this year at all?
Our growth rate is double digit over the last several years. Year to date, we're up 18% in January and February. So this continues to push us. So we're not forecasting, but I would say conservatively that we're going to be up at least 5%, and that's what we saw last year.
Rick, excellent presentation. I just wanted this last project, but that really fits in the role of the UDOT in doing this national meeting. That sounds like more something that should be perhaps not a governmental opportunity. Just conservative comment here. Thank you.
Yeah, that we put in another project. There is an opportunity out there. We agree that it may or may not be. There probably isn't a transportation type thing that it's an opportunity out there for businesses or some developer to do this and provide it as an app.
Rick, one question for all of these. If the commission were to choose any one of these projects, it's not like we'd be out there turning dirt tomorrow. There's a full, robust environmental process we have to go through any one of these, especially any of the new paving projects across the bluff, which would include scoping meetings, public involvement work, all of those things to get to a point where we can make a decision on moving forward. Is that correct?
Yes, that is definitely correct. These are options. I mean, we've tried to figure out what options are available out there from the Zions area to help with congestion mitigation and increased tourism and other opportunities. So these are the ideas that came out from that committee. If the commission was willing, and here in a couple of months, based on the schedule that Nate showed you, to send us down a path on one of these, there's a whole project development process that would occur through that whole section. So.
Anything else, Rick?
Let's move on to another item if you want.
No, we're going to have public comments.
I thought we were doing our local area.
Let's have some public comments because we've introduced this topic.
As it relates to this topic.
Yes, there'll be public comments as it relates to the Zions development topic that Rich has just introduced. I understand that there's a number of people here that would like to address the commission on this particular issue, given some of the options that have been explored. We ask that you limit your presentations to no more than 3 minutes, and I will have the gavel very active, because I suspect that there's a lot of people that would like to address the commission. And so we want to hear from as many as we can. If information has been presented before you are able to address the commission, then please extend the information. Don't repeat a lot of the same information, please, because there's a lot of people that I think would like to address this topic. So we'd like to open the commission meeting now for public comments to address this particular issue of the recreational hotspots for the Zions area. For those that want to address. When you address the commission, please identify yourself and your position if you're an elected official or a resident in the area, and then be brief, please, because we want to hear from as many of you as we can. We know a lot of you taken time out, and we want to hear from as many of you as we can this morning. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm John Bramall from the mayor of Hurricane. So I represent about 18,500 people. When I moved to Hurricane was 3,500 people in 1990. So the growth is about 70% Washington County residents moving to Hurricane, and about 30% people from out of state moving to Hurricane because of recreational opportunities. So, and I first want to give gratitude to the UDOT I travel around, do business in 9 counties of Utah and consult, so I'm traveling on UDOT roads through all 29 counties during the year. And I appreciate the quality of roads that we have and the money that's spent throughout the state, and the planning and the vision that is shown in cooperating. I appreciate the local people and what they've done with us. One of our problems is international tourism, and I said to my wife, why have we gone from 2.75 million visitors to pushing 5 million visitors in just a short time? And she says, well, that's really easy. I don't want to go to Israel or Germany or United Kingdom or other places where I might get blown up. So the international terrorism has been a real driving force to people wanting to come visit places in Utah, including Zion National Park. To give you an example, Houston has about 6 million people. We have about 5 million drive through Hurricane every year. So I asked UDOT to do a warrant for SR9, and they said, you're getting I-15 levels of traffic. And I said, yeah, my 2016 truck, when I go in the morning to St. George to meetings, my warning devices, that the early radar detection says, you're being encroached on the right and the left and the front and back. You need to slow down. Well, everybody else is going 60 miles an hour with 20 to 30 feet in front of them, behind them, and we need that SR9 I-15 interchange. And it was in the 15-year plan, but we probably needed it 3 or 4 years ago. And even at 10:30 yesterday when we went through with the bus, with all of us on the bus, we were at about 60 foot per vehicle, you know, bumper to bumper. If one rabbit or deer had run across the road, we would have had about 3 or 4 vehicles hitting into each other in the back, just because you're taking 4 lanes to 2 lanes on that interchange. So anyway, I'm speaking in favor of that, and it's a big need. One of the reasons I support, at least, and maybe we don't need to pave all these roads with 2 inches of pavement. We in Hurricane, we have 60 square miles, and so we'll do 3 or 4 miles for $250,000, and we'll just seal and chip them to keep the dust down, but not to attract huge semis and other vehicles traveling through. And I think Rockville and Great Plains might appreciate the dust being mitigated, but not necessarily freight trucks coming through those roads. So there may be some savings there in terms of mitigating dust and meeting EPA guidelines. The other thing is the beauty of our region, and it is a driver. We haven't advertised, hey, come to Hurricane, and Hurricane hasn't spent any money, done any campaign, and yet Country Living magazine rated Hurricane, Utah, the #1 small town recreation destination in America. Uh-oh, we got a problem. Okay? Then we didn't advertise in Popular Mechanics, that goes worldwide to mechanics and scientists all around the world. In 2015 and 2017 said Hurricane is in the top 5 safest cities in America. That didn't help any either. And SafeTheCities.com puts us in the top 20 safest cities in America. But we happen to have a chief of police who does FBI and terrorism training nationally, and does a great job with our police services. Last night we even did a SWAT thing on a person who's known to be doing drugs. My time's up. Well, I've covered about 25% of our problems, so you'll hear the rest of them from others. Thank you.
Good morning, Commission. Good to see you again. I'm Mayor Chris Hart from Ivan City, and I'm the chair of the Dixie Transportation Executive Council. And I simply briefly want to state the support of the MPO, Dixie MPO, for these hotspot projects. They're beyond needed in some cases, and I'm sure you're well aware of that. But just be advised that as we meet together as a council, we have recognized for a number of years the developing seriousness of the congestion along this corridor. So we certainly appreciate your consideration of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be with you as well today. John Pike, Mayor of the City of St. George. Thanks also for letting us go on the bus tour with you yesterday, at least part of it in my case. You bet. It's a pleasure to work with UDOT, and I appreciate all of the commissioners, of course, with a special nod to Nagi Zanati, who does a great job representing all the state, but our part of the state in particular here. So in terms of, and Danny is definitely not shy either, yes, but I don't suspect any of you are, so thank you. My first purpose is to thank you today, Carlos, for all of your staff, Rick Torgerson in particular, that works so closely with us. Really, it is a fantastic partnership. And I want you to know that we recognize that. We feel it. We appreciate it. We feel very well served by the Utah Department of Transportation. So I want you to know that first and foremost. I have no complaints, zero. And that, I mean that seriously. I think the projects of the past in our area of the state have really gone well. So kudos to each of you and to the staff. In terms of the hotspot funding, which is what I understand you want us to address specifically now, I applaud that process too. As Rick mentioned, I got to be a part of that, missed some of that due to being out of town, but I love the process. I think all of them in the priority order are very good options, and certainly in this area of the county, very important. One of the things that I'd love to have us consider that's on the list that Rick mentioned is the connecting of the pedestrian and bike path from essentially St. George to Springdale. And St. George already has 50 miles roughly of paved bike and walking paths, and we almost connect to Washington City. We've got what we call a missing link we're working on. We're trying to figure out a way to do it affordably. Once we have that connection directly, it wouldn't be that tough to get from Washington to Hurricane. And then you heard the discussion about from getting to Hurricane to Springdale. I think that's an achievable thing, but you have to set your goals, right? You got to set a goal to be able to have any hope of reaching it. I think that would be a great opportunity for us for both active transportation as well as tourism. So love to see that happen, and we'll talk about the other things another time. But thank you for making this a priority.
We queue up, so we just come right on up. And I, like everyone else that has gone before me, would like to express our appreciation to each of you. Oh, yes, thank you. I'm Dean Cox. I'm a commissioner of Washington County. And especially with Carlos and Shane and Rick Torgerson at the local level, we've been through a very collaborative process on this hotspot funding and the ranking of the projects. And we feel that the ranking that we've come up with is just superb. Our top 5, and I jotted those down just so that I'd get them in the right order, are the big planes. We feel that's very necessary for the workforce transportation options as much as anything else, where we have a lot of workers that need to come to Springdale who live in the Apple Valley, Hilldale, and Colorado City area. Sheep Ridge project is again another cut-off road that would save approximately 23 miles by saving people from driving down into Hurricane and coming back out. Park and ride and transit are very important for us, as well as the additional passing lanes. And so again, thank you for all that you are doing. Thank you for this process that we've been able to collaboratively participate in. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now I'd like to hear from some people from the general public as opposed to the mayor. Go ahead. But then I'd like to hear from the general public as well as the elected officials, please.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Pam Leach, the mayor of Rockville. I wanted to say thank you for allowing me to join you on the tour yesterday. It was very informative. One of the things on that tour that I was happy to see in your pamphlet was the hotspot funding and the fact that you have addressed our concerns about the Big Plains Road project that had originally been given to you and that effect on Rockville, and that you have added the connector corridor and have seen that as an important part of that project. I hope that that continues to be your focus when looking at that project. There are people here from Rockville I know would like to talk also about this. You've heard from me before, you've had my letters, so I will turn over the rest of the time to the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us yesterday. We'd like to have you. Let's hear from the public, please. We've heard from the elected officials, the people from the public that would like to address us. Please, be sure to identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Max Frederick. I own a small business, or several small businesses in Springdale. I also live in Rockville. I've heard several times now that the reason for the paving the Big Plain Road would be to facilitate bringing more employees to the canyon. Nobody's ever talked to us about that. I have a fairly sizable workforce that we draw on, mostly coming from the Hurricane Valley. We don't see that as a huge benefit. I don't think that's a good investment of funds for the sole purpose of bringing employees into this canyon. There's better ways to spend money to help us with that problem. And I think it brings way more problems than it solves into the area in terms of traffic that's going to travel on that and have a huge impact on the Rockville community.
Thank you very much. There's this gentleman on the front row, I think, that has his hand raised.
Yes, I'm a resident over in Apple Valley, and
Your name, please?
Rich Kopp. I live in Sea Point subdivision up there. And my main concern is we have a very hazardous road. 59, Highway 59 is already very hazardous. For some reason, people, they call it the polygamous freeway over there. If you're going 65, they gotta go 85. If you pump it up to 75, they gotta go 95. So we have a major issue with the amount of people that are on the road already. By bringing one of these bypasses up to 59, my fear is without improving 59 first and putting more people on 59, we're just gonna see more fatalities. We had somebody pass away just yesterday down at the bottom of the hill. It was a head-on collision, and just putting more people on that road without massive improvements, I don't think it's a good idea.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Are there other people from the public that will come to the front? Come to the front. This gentleman back here, please come on. Make your way to the front so you're available.
Hi, I'm Donnie Jessup. I'm from Hilldale, and so if we're going to speak about the polygamy freeway, let's talk about the rise in the Zion tourism, and then SR 59 is where they all head after that. So we've got 5 million people, 4.2 million people traveling on SR 59, and a vast majority of the accidents that are happening are tourists. So if we don't get the road improved on SR 59 first, we are already in trouble there. That one has got to have some passing lanes, some bigger lanes, and then some shoulders, some definite shoulders, and then the Big Plains Road and the Sheep Bridge Road. Now I'll talk from another point. I help women and children that are coming out of the church, the FLDS church, and they are looking for work. We're trying to get them down here for work. But one of the biggest problems is it's too far to drive to go all the way around Hurricane. So improving those roads to cut off that 25 miles would just be a great benefit. And we are trying to open Hilldale up as more of a tourist community. And so there's just a lot of things that we need to approach. But SR 59 is number one for us, and then the two roads, Big Plain and Sheep Bridge, for those to be improved. That's what I would ask you for the most.
Thank you very much. Look at the gentleman in the back that's coming forward right now.
Hi, I'm Logan Hebner. I live in Rockville. And back on that, along the road that we're talking about, not the high plains, but how people would actually come back and across our bridge that would have to be replaced. So we've just gone through a lot of trouble to preserve that beautiful old bridge. So let's say now we've connected up, there's the Mighty Five plus the Grand Canyon. So anybody driving from Grand Canyon to Zion, hitting their Google Navigator, and they will, is going to find that the fastest way to Zion National Park is going to be down this road that we're talking about. What do you call it, the High Plains Road? We call it Crybaby Hill. So everyone that is, we're talking about millions of people, are now going to access Zion National Park through this road, through the back of Rockville, where a lot of people have gone through a lot of trouble to have a quiet rural lifestyle. They'll now be living on a main highway, and now we're going to have to change the bridge. I really hear and understand the woman's concern about bridging, bringing Hillsdale people and from Apple Valley, but almost all those people have four-wheel drive vehicles. If you road base that road, if you just take care of that road, and so that the people from that whole area can access the road most of the time. The county just did that for my road. I live up as you go towards Eagle Crags Trail, and that was the same muddy, horrible, it's the exact same lift to that mesa. And the county has road-based that road, and it's just fine now for if you have the right rig. Even, my wife has a Prius, and she comes up and down that hill now, but it doesn't show up on the Google Navigators. So I think we can accommodate the people who want to work. The paving of the Sheep's Bridge Road really helps take care of that. That knocks a lot of time out of that drive. But if you pave that road and it pops up on Google, have to replace the bridge, and we will literally have millions of people driving through the back roads of Rockville. And I don't think that's a good solution. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. I think we've got this lady right here, one back, one here, and then this lady right over here. This gentleman
Hi,
here.
I just want to thank you for letting us have the opportunity to speak today. My name is Lainey. I live on Bridge Road in Rockville. I just want to give you a human aspect of it now. We have about 50 to 100 cars that go through there now. I have people camping in my front yard. I have people knocking on my door for directions. I have people stopping, taking pictures of my dog all the time. This happens, and I can't even imagine what it would be like with 500 more cars per day coming through there. We know where we live. We know we live in a tourist spot. We know we're going to deal with tourists. But our houses are our sanctuary. Our neighborhoods is our sanctuary. The Great Plains Road, it's accessible now. I feel like if it's a great backcountry experience. So I'm sorry, I get really emotional because I'm really worried about this. This is my home. This is where I sit on my front porch. This is where I have my people over for barbecues. I just can't imagine traffic coming through right where I live. And I just hope, I love all of the other things you have going on. Yay, let's do all those. So let's keep the backcountry. Thank you.
Thank you. This lady right over here.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Kavar-Kaur, and I'm on the UDOT committee for the Route 9 representing residents in Springdale. And the first point that I'd like to point out is that one of the former speakers said that this has been a collaborative process, but in reality it hasn't been a collaborative process. The Mighty Five travel advertisement around the world was not done in collaboration with Moab or Springdale, and it was foisted upon us. And the result of that is, like, I'm a Springdale resident. Our community has been pretty much destroyed in an interpersonal level. And it's no longer fun to live in Springdale. It's busy, it's full of traffic, it's loud, and the commercial, we used to have a very egalitarian community where residents, climbers, park service people, commercial were in a balance. And that balance has gone heavily towards commercial. And only some people are benefiting from that, and not many of us are. So one of the things that I want to point out is that the Big Plains Road project will also destroy another community, Rockville, where right now there's still peace. Right now it's not commercial, and it's not been invaded. You can still walk there and get what people are coming to here for, which is peace and quiet and beauty. And putting that road there will destroy another beautiful area and just turn it into commercial. So the question is also, what will the zoning be by all these roads? So now that you have a road like the railroads did in the 1880s, will we now have commercial zoning by all these roads? Which will again destroy what we're doing, and who benefits from that? People who already have money and who already have a commercial establishment, not the residents, nor even the tourists ultimately. So my point is, if you're going to do a project, the Sheep Ridge Road project you said was $3 or $4 million. You said the Big Plains Road project is $23 million. For that same $23 million, you could do the transportation project, you could do the Sheep Ridge project, you could do a trail project that has different modes of transportation. We're encouraging people to bike, to walk, and not be with their four-wheel drives or their big cars coming into these small areas. So I just would like you to consider the human factor and the destruction of our communities that has been occurring by all these projects. Thank you.
Just a couple things. I want to second what my neighbors have said. I'm also from Rockville. My name is Robert Ford. I live on Grafton Road, just around the corner from the bridge. And I've experienced people coming and wanting to camp in my backyard along the river and camping right along the front. And it's just, and I've seen the changes that are going on. So I would like to second what was just proposed, is to put the priority on the on the SR9 improvements, the Sheep Ridge Road, the things that will keep things in the major corridor that you're already planning for, and keep that Crybaby Hill, keep it as a Crybaby Hill, so that people that go there want to go slow and enjoy the scenery and not become a major traffic corridor. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Edna Fisher. I'm from Hillsdale, and I drive on SR 59 almost every day. Just this morning, coming down, I passed 5 different big trucks that had at least 3 or 4 cars tailgating them really close, and it's like that every day. Like early morning, late at night, it doesn't matter. It's always like that. The other night, I was driving home and there was a truck, and there was quite a few cars behind it, and I was behind them, and there was like a lot of following distance when we first started up the road. But as we got farther down the road and we were going faster than like 50, then it caused a lot of people, it seemed like they were getting really mad and anxious and started tailgating a lot and trying to pass, and just not very safe at all.
Thank you very much. Please, sir. Thank you.
Oh, I think it's turned off.
Very top of it. Anyway, there we go. There you go.
Thank you. My name is Rich Osowski. I'm from Apple Valley. I've been there 9 years. I live in the Gooseberry area. Really gorgeous up there. What we call Clybaby Hill, or the Big Plains, is called the Scenic Byway. Now, I've traveled that road a number of times, and I know you gentlemen have taken a tour the other day or yesterday. Maybe you need to take a tour down that road. And maybe you need to look at all the scenery that's involved. You will never see a more, and I've been around the country, more beautiful place than that scenic byway. If you open it up, I agree with some of them. I agree with Rockfield. One end is Apple Valley, one end is Rockfield. Once you open that road up, I don't believe Zion could handle it. They got 4.5 million. It will put so much traffic into Zion. Why don't you stand at the gate and try to get into Zion now? I was here in Zion when we didn't have buses. Maybe you need buses all the way from Hurricane into Zion. Maybe you're getting rid of the parking on the main street. It is going to be a mess. I would like to keep, the scenic byway could be chipped and sealed, but there's so many camping spots. There's so many people that abuse them. I come from Las Vegas, 350,000 when I was there. I know Sedona. Sedona we don't want to turn Springdale into because Springdale can't handle it. So look at this very closely, 18 to 23 million, 28 feet wide. If you pave that road, the 59 will be a hazard. So take a tour and go down that road and see what you would like. It would be beneficial to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to meet with you today. Lynn Chamberlain, I'm the mayor of Tokerville. And, Mayor Bramall and I are really good friends. We know each other really well and enjoy each other's company. He would have you believe that all 5 million of those people go through Hurricane. A significant number of those people go through Tokerville. Okay? If you're coming from the east and you take exit 27, 3 miles, you're in Tokerville. And that is the Zion exit from the southbound I-15. We don't have a commercial area in Tokerville. So when you hit Tokerville, you're in a two-lane road, and it's residential. And yeah, beautiful place. We love Tokerville. What my comment is, and I have a question, was Tokerville included on the planning, and I'm newly elected, so I don't know, were they included in the planning of the Zion corridor? Okay, I would seriously ask why not, but that's for another question. He was, okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you, appreciate that, Zach. What's that? Oh, good. Well, that's our bad then. I appreciate that knowledge, and I really didn't know, so I appreciate that. We have a bypass road that's being looked at very seriously. We're in the process of just kind of wrapping up the whole right-of-way system for that. It all passes on private property and would bypass the downtown segment of Tokerville and would get it out of that residential area and establish a commercial area for economic development for the town of Tokerville.
As we drove through there yesterday, that was explained where it would connect in up near
Right.
the freeway, and then when it would connect back into 17 on the south side.
Fantastic, and I appreciate your attention to that. Right. What I'm going to ask you is that when that comes up for funding, that you will give it serious consideration, because I hope we're on the verge of moving that up the priority list by getting the right-of-ways all taken care of, and just give it some consideration when it comes to it. We need. I live on Toker Boulevard, which is Highway 17, and I can't sit on my front porch and carry on a conversation. That's how the traffic is. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that. We worked through there yesterday. Beautiful place, and we appreciate the description we got of that bypass road. Very effective. There are other people who would like to address, please, sir, and then get in line, those.
Good morning. Thank you for holding this here in our backyard so that. Can you hear me now? There we go. Thank you for holding this here in our backyard so you can see what we deal with on a regular basis. My name is Troy Bellison. I'm with Washington City. I sit on the city council. I'm also a private developer, so take that for what it's worth. I'm biased both ways. I'd like to discuss a little bit on the proposal on the shuttle. You know, the major problem in Springdale isn't the workforce traffic, it's the tourist traffic. So anything we can do to keep the tourist traffic off these roads and out of these communities is going to help. There's been a fair amount of discussion in Washington City on how do we work and possibly put a put a bus hub, shuttle hub, and a parking structure in Washington, in some of our commercial developments there, so that keeps that tourist traffic out. Certainly the workforce has the ability to access that way, but we can keep the vehicles, keep the traffic in our areas, and then shuttle the folks in. With it being co-located with commercial development, I believe, as I saw on one of the bullet points, was to try and build that, and that would help to build our commercial development, also help to keep the traffic out of the area. Certainly, to get anything done, you need two things. You need will and funding. We have will in our area. The question is if we can pull the funding together. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. I think we've got another couple of gentlemen right over here.
Yeah, hi, my name is Brent Cook. I'm a resident of Rockville. I live south of the river, so I use that bridge almost every day. And I appreciate you recognizing the insanity of dumping that many people under that bridge and looking at other alternatives. My first alternative would be to put a roundabout in St. George that headed back to California. But what recognizing that probably isn't on your list.
Probably isn't going to happen.
A compromise that Kavara brought up, I thought was, addresses everything. Is rather than spending $23 million plus and all the headaches of building that road, what you're calling Big Plains, and dropping it into West Rockville, fix up the Sheep Creek Road, put some camping spots there. That's desperately needed, and do the other options as well. That would, to me, makes the most sense. Is the most sensible option available, given you're not going to take them first. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Hey, Jeff Sky. I'm a 25-year resident of Bridge Road in Rockville. My wife and I live at what will become known as Congestion-geddon if this project goes through the Big Plains. I'd like to echo what most of the Rockville residents have already said. Take that $23 million and you can fund almost all of those other projects. There's a lot of us here that would like to see a bike path that would come. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Hello, I'm Jason Pitts. Weird to hear my own voice. I'm working with DSU and the National Park on the project that was last on your list, the one that barely held on. I just wanted to give an update on where we're at with that project, actually. That project's moving forward. We have sensors that will be active by the end of the month that are categorizing the types of vehicles that are going through the south entrance right now. So one of the things that our initial sensors discovered right from the get-go is that between 9 and 2, a lot of those vehicles go into the park and then a few minutes later exit the park. And so they don't take heed of the little sandwich boards letting them know that there's no parking inside the park, and they go and look for parking, can't find it, and leave. And so one of the things that these sensors do is they tell us that, hey, these cars are only spending so many minutes inside the park, and then they're exiting the park. And so with this sensor network, once the park uses the loop sensors to verify that it's doing a good job, we hope to take that data and pass it to the electronic signs that are being built right now in the middle of town, at the end of town. Let visitors know, hey, there's no parking. Or if it's 2 in the afternoon, hey, there is parking. There's 60 spots available inside the park, or there are 80 spots inside the park. And so this intelligent system characterizes what kind of car it is, how long it spends in the park, whether it goes out the east entrance or comes in the east entrance. So we get a much better idea of what the traffic looks like. And the exciting part is that if we're able to do this, I mean, we're talking about a significant percentage just from our early numbers of vehicles that are going into the park and coming out. And I mean, if you can get the attention of only a few of those cars, I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of cars per month out of the 100,000 go through the gate, convincing them to take the first parking spot in Springdale. You know, don't go up to the park, to the south entrance and find out there isn't parking spots. We can tell you if there's parking spots or not. And those sensors at the entrance, like I said, should be done by the end of the month. We've got a tight schedule to try to get sensors in at the parking so that we feed those signs and we feed Twitter and we feed Facebook and all those kinds of stuff. The other type of sensors that we built, the one sensor that's on the bridge right now or next to the bridge right now is keeping track of pedestrians as they walk across the bridge both ways and when those times are, so the park can use that data in their visitor use management plan. And eventually we'll be able to put that data out so that people can develop apps and so forth to let them know, hey, you know, maybe you should go to Angel's Landing at noon, right? Maybe you should wait till 2. You won't have to wait in line for the shuttle potentially, and you can actually have a much better experience. Once the vehicle sensors, to wrap it up, once the vehicle sensors are in place, we have plans to invite the superintendent and staff from Arches to come down and look, because it tells you what the dwell time is at the entrance, that you know how long the cars are, what the mix is, whether half RVs or half trucks and half stuff like that, and then how many of those vehicles go in, how long they saw, and then combined with the sensors that go on the trails, let you know what those folks are doing once they actually get into the park. And that allows a lot of flexibility to hopefully manage those users a little bit better. We're hoping that Arches will look at that and see the benefit to them. They can tell the dwell time, they can tell how many visitors are going through at what time, and let people know, in Arches' case, you know, before they even turn onto the highway, right? Let them know that, hey, there's a 2-hour wait, or 2 o'clock is probably a better time to try to go to visit. Maybe go into Moab and have lunch and then come out at 2 o'clock and not wait in line so long. The sensors that we're putting in at the trailheads, I think they may have some benefits in Little Cottonwood. They may want to consider using these sensors that we're deploying out there. Maybe Rick can come take a look at them, and they may be helpful to let them know how many bikes and stuff are using these trails. I know that they're using Strava right now, but these tell every single bike and every single pedestrian when they go by and what time they went by. So anyways, not a traditional road project, not a pavement, but the opportunity to possibly, you know, get people to not clog up the entrance and maybe thousands and thousands of cars not on the roads every month. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe we've got 3 or 4 more people over here, and then I'm going to have to call it a clip to this. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Trish Jennings. I live on Bridge Road in Rockville. I'm also a business owner in Springdale. And I wanted to also address the 500 parking space thing that was talked about in Rockville. And my concern of that, since Rockville, you know, we don't have any businesses, that would be considered a business. And maybe we could enter that into the Sheep's Bridge thing. If we could do Sheep's Bridge instead of Crybaby Hill and have the parking there instead of in Rockville, as it would affect us, since we're a community of 200. It would double the size of people in Rockville just with the parking lot.
Thank you very much.
I'm Stan Smith, the mayor. You already know. I'll be very brief. Again, I thank you for coming to my project that I just really hold dear. I love all the projects. There's good and bad to it, but I would really encourage you to look seriously at the transit system from St. George to Springdale. You've got lots of information. The town council of Springdale is in support of it, and we'll be giving you more information. But I just want to take this 30 seconds just to say, please really consider that as a viable and worthy project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good morning. My name is Carol Hammond. I'd like to lend my voice on the concern of State Route 59. I'm a resident from Centennial Park, originally from Hillville. And I drive that road weekly, my family, every day. And it is such a hazard. My niece was killed on a head-on 2 years ago. And I know it costs a lot of money to add you know, the double lanes. But you can't replace a life. You cannot replace a person. The other day, I mean, I have to take my kids to dentist appointments. I have 5 kids in the back of the yard, in the back seats, buckled in. I'm going the speed limit, and I am constantly shoved off into the gravel to save their life. My niece did not have a chance. She had a car coming right at her and did not have a chance. There was nowhere for her to go. We've got to fix that. We had a fatality yesterday. A 25-year-old girl. My niece is 21, going to college, with a full life ahead of her. And so my voice is for her. Please, please consider some improvements on that road for the safety of our children. It's a big deal. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Now, we're going to run really close on time here, so if there's something new that you have to say, please say that. We've heard about 59, we've heard about possible alternatives, so please, if there's something new, we want to hear from you.
Thank you. My name is Rod Mills. I'm a civil engineer, and I'm blessed with the opportunity to represent Apple Valley, Virgin, and Rockville on engineering efforts. I did submit an application for consideration, and what it represents is sort of a different way of thinking about getting traffic completely out of the canyon and moving it still into the Zions, but through different corridors. It was the application on Mesa Road. Mesa Road intersects with Sheep Ridge Crossing. And I think although there are some challenges associated with that, and I can appreciate the fact that it's not super high on the list, but it is one of the options that does represent a way to get traffic into Zions and unload the canyon a little bit. I think there's some recreational opportunities on that side of the park, and if we can figure out a way to access the park from that side, we can take a lot of the traffic clear to the west side of Virgin and into the park from a completely different access. And I think that represents a really unique opportunity to solve some of these problems. And as an engineer, I think anything is possible, and we want to make a difference for the canyon and for these communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please.
My name is John Barlow. I live on Baby Ridge. I didn't know that was what it was called until a couple days ago. I would just like to say that if I could interject one idea here, and that's that maybe we could bring in those connections and mitigate the traffic problem at the same time. Like if someone's pitching a tent or something, maybe putting up a fence on the side of the road, or somehow facilitating that traffic without being intrusive to Rockville. So that's my idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I wanted to be last because I was going to change the subject, but there's another person or two. My name is Bernadette Cole, and I live on Bridge Road. And I once wrote a poem. It was a haiku, and it said, "My neighborhood, 3 small towns where the sun sets up: Springdale, Rockville, and the park." At the time. Such great brain power here. I'm like, wow. And just yesterday there was a decision made that is kind of not maybe DOT, but when you guys are talking 23 million, 7 million, do you guys ever help with EMS budgets? Because the Rockville Springdale Fire Department was just, I mean, I know it's a complicated issue, but I also think that maybe all the avenues haven't been looked at, so I would love it if some of the brain power in this room could also just revisit the decisions that have been made and just make sure that we find a win-win for the community, the EMS, and everything. Thank you.
Commissioners, I just wanted to say thank you very much. Yesterday I was privileged enough to go on the tour, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. My name is Robert Campbell. I am the mayor for Apple Valley, Utah. And when you look at Big Plains Drive, when you look at 59, we are definitely impacted by what's transpired with all the national parks. If you look at it, a lot of people know Apple Valley is the chevron that makes great burgers because that's what's kind of in the center of Apple Valley. And as we grow, we're a small town. The other thing that we're really well known for is Gooseberry Mesa and Little Creek Mesa. It is a destination spot. It's the only place in the United States that made the world top 10 list for mountain bike riding. Speaking with Nate that works with UDOT, he was out there and enjoyed some of that mountain bike riding recently. And with the mountain bike riding, it definitely has impacted our 59. And I apologize for going there a little bit. But it definitely has impacted it. In fact, last Saturday, as driving from Hurricane over the challenge of the hill towards Sheep's Bridge, there was a gentleman that was turning with mountain bikes off to the left. Well, the lane was slowing down to the left. The left lane turning into Sheep's Bridge was slowing down. And the cars behind it were slowing down. We were in the lane to the right. And the cars behind that actually turned out. One of the cars turned out. We were doing about 55. Speed limit 65. 85 for many. And the car actually struck us on the side. And it hit us. We tried to avoid as much as possible, but it actually hit us. So one of the factors that's not being looked at is part of what's transpiring with Apple Valley, Gooseberry Mesa. You have the Red Bull Rampage that's in that area. There's a lot of increased traffic. For us, one of the only ways to get to Gooseberry Mesa on the backside is on the scenic byway, Big Plains Road. And it's a beautiful road. I do recommend, please, I'd love to offer out a tour and bring the commissioners out there and see what it is, because it is absolutely beautiful. Apple Valley is unknown and is a gem of Utah. And we love that aspect. But there's also the increased tourism. We're in the middle of I-15, a major artery heading down to Arizona. We have the Grand Canyon. You have Lake Powell. You have Zion. And we have a chevron. So in that process, all the traffic that's coming through there is greatly impactful. And I'm also want to talk a little bit about a gentleman who I got to know about 6.5 years ago. You won't know him. His name is Craig Thigerson. I got to meet Craig Thigerson, and I also had the opportunity to help raise his boys over the last 6 years. Craig's not with us today. At one of the spots on 59, he was turning and rounding the bend, and unfortunately had a severe accident that ended Craig's life. It was definitely a tough situation for Craig. And as a scout leader during that time frame, I had the ability, the blessing to help raise these young men. And I felt it was absolutely impactful in their life, and still raising, helping with their boys today. That same location on 59, there was a vehicle turning left, and a bus thought it was turning right. So the bus decided to pass a Suburban on the left as it was turning left. Needless to say, they both ended up out in the pasture, and it was a major event that happened in Apple Valley recently. That was about 2.5, 3 months ago. Since then, there's been 2 other bus accidents on 59. So I do want to touch bases with it because I realize Big Plains is a great artery to help relieve some of that traffic that comes down from where Big Plains all the way to Hurricane, and it does work that around that 23 miles. So it does save. Is it a tough situation with coming over the hill to Rockville? Absolutely. I know the folks there aren't happy about it. And I know some of the folks in Apple Valley. I support it. I support the economics that it would help bring us with our small town of 700 that doesn't have. I do support the economics of some of our local communities that do travel over and work in Springdale and travel to some of our sister cities that are close. And I just wanted to say thank you for considering that, because to me that is a very valuable opportunity and one of the only places that can go over. So if that potential does transpire, it is greatly appreciated for that to be considered. So I just want to again thank the commissioners. I want to thank the local folks, Mr. Whitehead, Mr. Abbott, and the other folks that have helped us with 59, and Mr. Snow. And I really want to thank them and say also you've got a great team down here. They've been very supportive of us, and we thank you for all that you have done. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor. We'll close that part of the public comments. One of the obligations and really privileges that we have as a commission, as we travel around the state, we have the opportunity to visit with people who actually live in the areas where we make decisions. And so seeing so many of you here, seeing your faces, your words, your determination to give us this information is very beneficial to us. We appreciate very much the fact that you've made the effort to be here. We've heard you. All of this will be taken into consideration. It's a part of the actual public record. We appreciate very much the effort that you've made to be here to share with us that information. And that information will be considered, it's been heard, and we appreciate very much the effort you've made to be with us today. Thank you very much for your public comments. We will proceed now with the rest of our meeting. Those of you who have come to address us or to hear what was being said and you would like to leave, I see many of you are not wasting any time to do that. Again, we thank you for making the effort to be here. We applaud your efforts. We've heard what you've had to say. Thank you. Now, let's take just a short break while these people leave. And Rick, if you'll get your local area presentation geared up, we'll go in just a minute.
Yeah, I'm ready to check out at 11. So I should probably run and go do that right now? Yeah. Okay. Well, this will be fine for a minute, then I'm gone.
Thank you for coming. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. That's where I gotta go.
They get the space to make a turn. I don't think it's an easy. It's not easy. Just to see I stayed in St. George. So we stayed in St. George. 6 years old. And I won that's it. Very quiet. It's front and center. Oh yeah. I can see her. So you're at the office now? Yeah, post office. Well, me too, trust me. Yeah, I see. I must see walks. How nice. No, come this way. Come this way. And then they come out and say, we can't do anything. Now, 3 times over here, and then we have it's really cool. I can't go through the tunnel, so now I have to go down the law. 15. Take all those big trucks. So that's another thing too. Give me a hug. How are you doing? No, that's okay. Good, you. Good. They got Kim and everyone's all excited to come down and enjoy week after next week. I actually haven't been. So I can't. Yeah, very excited. St. George, we typically get the most comments.
Wow. Thanks for having food for us. Oh,
It's different.
That's well.
Well, let's call this unruly crowd to order. Thanks for enduring the break. We're going to reassemble here and get going. What we want to do is to pick up with our Region 4 presentation. And then we do want to open it up for public comment on other topics. And we'll do that briefly and then move to the scoreboard. So, Rick?
Thank you, Commissioners, and we'll show you a lot of the information on here. We also talked a little bit about the tour yesterday, so several of the projects. We're going to give you an update of the full Washington County area, not just the major corridors. We're going to give you kind of the whole corridor. So Kurt Warnock, he wanted to coach softball this year, so he's off, being a coach this morning in sunny St. George, we hope, playing softball. So Chris Hall is our local project manager down here and actually handles quite a few of these projects in the area. So we're going to have Chris give the presentation today and step you through the information for Washington County.
Thank you. Do a quick start off. This is just a project that was recently completed. We're working on now or in the near future going to be on. This is just for Washington County. So a quick overview, the funds allocated to Washington County since 2007 totals $861.6 million. And that equates to about 221 projects. And that includes all of the projects, whether they were state funds, federal funds with local participation, planning, concept, environmental documents, and it takes them all the way through construction. And as you can see on the map here, you can see that these projects are highlighted in the different colors, depending on if they were completed in planning or in construction. So the first one we want to talk about and highlight is the I-15 Brigham Road to Dixie Drive project. Now it goes 4 to 5 on I-15. The construction is completed on that one. It was a $24.4 million project that replaced both structures over the Virgin River and added an auxiliary lane between the two exits of milepost 4 and milepost 5, with the structures being wide enough to accommodate future widening on I-15 that is planned. Let me jump back there, sorry. There's a couple pictures here to kind of show you. This is sitting over here by Bloomington looking north to the project, and you can see the structures right here. And this is another picture sitting underneath the two new structures on the pedestrian bike path of St. George City that goes through the area. You can see the Virgin River underneath the structures. Yeah. Anybody want Carlos can bike underneath the blank? The next project would be St. George Boulevard, SR 34. It was 900 east to 1000 east. The construction is completed on this one. It's right through here. It is a $2.7 million project that added an eastbound lane right through here. You can see this photo here. There is still queuing at this intersection, but it has significantly helped with how far the queuing goes. And what it did is that existing on the interchange, there's 3 lanes on this side of the intersection, and it added that eastbound 3rd lane here to accommodate the extra queuing to match the other side of the intersection. The next project is I-15, Arizona State Line to Cottonwood Creek, or about milepost 0 to approximately milepost 19. This one was completed this last year. It's a $2.7 million project that sealed the asphalt on I-15 and the ramps. You can see there's a break right here. It was a break in the project because we had an existing Mall Drive underpass project going on, so we skipped that and did around it. This is a photo of it. You can see that the condition of the existing pavement and then it's with the sealed surface there. This is at exit 13 looking north. The next project, we're moving into the projects under construction now, is our SR9 Rockville Design National Park project. It's currently under construction. The total value of $18.7 million. This project was done in 2 phases. The first phase was through Rockville that widened the shoulders and did an asphalt overlay that was completed last year. And then currently the second phase is ongoing right now, reconstructing the road through Springdale. We're adding wider sidewalks, curb and gutter, some utility relocations. We're adding bike lanes, and there's multiple local betterments to improve the lighting and underground power in the area also as part of this project. And it is scheduled to be completed spring of 2018. Here's a couple of photos of what it has, and you can kind of visualize how tight the work zone is and the amount of work they have to do in such a small area with high traffic. We intentionally planned this project in the winter time, which is not ideal to have construction, but it definitely minimized the impact on the tourist traffic and the local businesses by doing it this way. And just here's another photo of work going on both sides of the road with just enough room to keep traffic moving through the area.
Is this in fact due to be completed April 15th?
That is the current scheduled completion date. The next project is our St. George Boulevard to Sunset Boulevard on State Route 18. It's currently under construction. The project value for that one is $51 million. It's widening the current section of 5 lanes to 7 lanes and including intersection modifications. The 2 major ones of the intersection modifications are at St. George Boulevard on Bluff Street and Sunset Boulevard on Bluff Street. And it is scheduled to be completed in the winter of 2018. The current scheduled completion date is November 15th on this one. And here's a photo of this that you can see that this is one of the major intersections that we're widening through here. That's St. George Boulevard and Bluff Street. And then another photo here allows you to see that this is near the beginning of construction, and you can see that there's a constant stream of cars that go through this area. It's a major corridor. But overall, the impacts to the traffic have been minimal, and hopefully the businesses will make it through. There's been a significant impact to the businesses, but we're trying to minimize it in any way possible. The next project these are the ones that we have awarded and have not yet been constructed. It's on I-15 from milepost 22 to 28. It's actually scheduled to start construction Monday. It's a $25.9 million project that will add a northbound climbing lane in that area with wildlife fencing. Once this project is complete, there will be a northbound climbing lane from about milepost 20 on I-15 all the way up to milepost 37 at the top of the block bridge. So it will accommodate most of the climb from St. George to Cedar City, maybe most of the big hills. And there's also we'll hit later on another project that's going to extend that even farther. And that is scheduled to be complete this summer, and we'll be starting Monday on that one. And this is just a photo of where the existing passing or climbing lane ends. We'll be taking it from here to tie into exit 28 at Tokerville exit. Next project that's scheduled, SR 17 Laverican to Anderson Junction. It's been awarded, and it's a $2.7 million project. It is an asphalt overlay for the summer of 2018, which takes it to the entire route of SR 17, which starts here at the junction of SR 9, and it goes all the way to I-15 at exit 28. Another project we have planned is SR 9 I-15 through Hurricane. It's been awarded and planned on being completed this summer. It's a $3.8 million project, and it's an asphalt seal similar to what we did on I-15 the previous year. But it starts at I-15 here and goes all the way through Hurricane, right to the border of Hurricane and Hurricane right here. Another project we have in planning is SR 9 Midway to Rockville, or a better name for that would be Virgin to Rockville passing lanes. It's currently in design. We're about ready to advertise it to move to construction shortly. It's a $7.5 million project. It's going to add 2 westbound passing lanes and 1 eastbound passing lane. This section right here, as you can see, will add a lane in each direction. So this section will be a 4-lane section with a passing lane in each direction. And then currently there's an existing passing lane right here outside of Rockville going into Rockville, and we're adding one on the other side for the other direction. And this current passing lane ends a little bit short of where we'd like it to, so we're also going to extend this one about 1,000 feet to terminate over the top of the hill, so it's a better traffic flow as part of this project. Another project in planning is Southern Parkway, Sand Hollow to SR 9. It's in design right now. It's a $74.7 million project. It'll be a new 2-lane road with interchanges. It's scheduled to start construction in 2019. This will start where SR 7 currently terminates at Sand Hollow, and will wrap all the way around and then tie back into SR 9 as a termination point for this new road. The next project that's in design is Exit 16 interchange improvements. It's a $25.4 million project. It adds a southbound auxiliary lane between exit 13 and 16. We will replace the structures over SR 9 in this interchange on I-15 that will improve the radiuses of the curves for the ramps so they can handle traffic flow much better. It'll also add capacity on the southbound and northbound off-ramps, which is the major traffic flows for this intersection.
This is the one that we drove through yesterday.
Yes, we drove through this one yesterday on the tour. And here's a photo of the existing configuration of it. What we'll do is we'll lengthen these out and then add an additional lanes here for the southbound on-ramp to solve some of the significant backup and queuing that happens currently here to help solve that problem. This is the project that I alluded to earlier. It's milepost 37 to 42 on I-15. It'll extend the climbing lanes from their current termination point right here at 37 all the way to exit 42. This project is also going to look at reconstructing these S-curves right here at the top of the Black Ridge. They're currently substandard, and we're looking at what we need to do to bring them up to a standard curve to improve the safety along that corridor. And that's planned for construction in 2019. There's just a quick picture of driving northbound. These are the curves that we're going to look at reconstructing to improve the safety. This project is on I-15. It's actually a partnership with St. George City, the Dixie MPO, and Dixie State University. It's a 400 South underpass. It's a pedestrian underpass that will cross right through here to connect the housing and hospital on this side of the freeway to the Dixie State campus over here to allow that active transportation and be able to accommodate the students getting to and from school and also to the hospital with the large nursing program that Dixie State has. It's currently in design. We're about to start. We've almost got a consultant on board to begin that. It's a $2.8 million project, and it'll just put that pedestrian bike crossing there to accommodate that. We plan construction in 2019. This just shows you the proposed location of that underpass. Here are some of the other projects in the area. The Northern Corridor, it's a BLM right-of-way application that we're supporting to help them go through the process of their environmental process. State Route 9, it's a I-15 to Southern Parkway environmental study. It'll study what we need to do to accommodate the SR9 corridor that connects SR7 to I-15 to help improve that route. It's a $2 million project for that environmental study. We're currently about to complete a concept study for SR18 from St. George Enterprise, or from St. George to Enterprise, in that corridor of the future needs of that roadway to accommodate the growth and future needs. Some of these other ones are local government projects here that Washington County Rural Roads for $800,000 and Washington County Old Highway 91 for $1.9 million. These projects include sealed asphalt, added guardrail, and some shoulder improvements. Purgatory Road environmental study is almost complete. It's a $536,000 study that will look at the options of a new roadway to connect Hurricane and Washington near Quail Creek Reservoir. I-15 exit 11 interchange environmental study. It's a $3.1 million study looking at the feasibility of what can be done in the Washington City area to help congestion at the Green Springs and the possibility of a new interchange on I-15. The Rockville City Structure Rehab, we talked about that briefly. It is a $2.5 million project that is about to be advertised and will be completed this coming fall and winter. River Road, Riverside Drive from 1450 South, a $3.5 million project with cooperation with St. George City to widen River Road and widen the structure and a few intersections, I believe. And that wraps up the current and future projects in the near future for Washington County. Are there any questions on any of these projects?
Questions from the commission?
Just,
Yes, please, Donna.
the structure rehab, that's the bridge, right?
Yes, that is the Rockville Bridge. It's a historic bridge.
And the intent is to maintain that historic.
Yes, it will still be on, it's currently on the National Historic Register, and it will still be when we're done with our rehabilitation.
If you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful bridge.
My nephew took his engagement pictures on the bridge. It's always been very, I grew up in St. George, so it's always been special to me.
Is that enough money to see that project
With our current estimates, it is. Unless we get some outside or bids that we didn't expect, it will be enough to.
$4 million. This is the rehab cost.
Yeah, this is a rehab. A new structure would cost more. It was a price reduction for rehabilitation versus a new structure.
It's only a single lane.
Yes, it's a single lane bridge.
Any other questions for Chris? Chris, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Now, what we want to do, according to our original plan, is to open it up for additional public comments on other topics. We had a lengthy period of comments about the Zion area roadways that were being proposed, but now other people, I believe, want to address the commission on some other topics. So we'll open it up for public comment at this point in time.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Arthur LeBaron. I'm the City Engineer for Hurricane City. You heard from our Mayor this morning. First of all, I want to tell you a big thank you for the amazing expenditure of funds that's taken place within our city limits with the extension of the Southern Parkway and also the improvements that are being planned at Exit 16. Those are amazing projects that are going to benefit our citizens. Probably one of the #1 questions I get from the public is about the Southern Parkway. When is it going to happen? And Hurricane is privileged to be the last hoorah for the Southern Parkway. So that's a really big deal to us, and we appreciate it. We've been clamoring at your doorstep, trying to accelerate these projects from later phases into the current phase, and we appreciate the response that we've received from your staff and from yourselves. Also, as the city engineer for Hurricane, I work almost on a daily basis with your local staff in Region 4 and at the complex, and I really appreciate all that they do for us and how responsive they are. And I acknowledge that some of them here, and I want to extend that thanks to them very sincerely. I have a lot to say about the hotspot funding. I'll just leave it this. From an engineering perspective, I think that providing increased circulation and transportation options makes all roads better and safer. And that speaks to UDOT's goal of 0 fatalities. On the agenda is a jurisdictional transfer for Old Highway 91 to Hurricane City, and I would speak in favor of that. That came onto the agenda at my request, and your staff have been great to get that on there. We are planning some improvements at the city's cost to make life better for the public. It's a horrible situation out there, and I think that this jurisdictional transfer is a step in the right direction. So I thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Zachary Renstrom. I'm a Washington County Commissioner. And my main point is just to go and to thank UDOT for what they're doing. The staff has been amazing. As you can tell, we have a lot of exciting projects going on here. But I've been so impressed with how the staff has reached out to both the local community, even, let's say, Bluff Street in St. George, that's a UDOT project. The contractor has been amazing working with the local businesses there. It's been tough for them, but UDOT staff stepped up and helped them add some additional signs. And we have so many exciting things going on here in Washington County, and we're just so appreciative of you guys coming down here and helping us out and helping us plan for the future. So that's my main thought, and my thing I like to say is just thank you to both you and your staff.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I promise I'll be quick since you already got some of me. John Pike, Mayor of St. George, and I already gave you all my kudos, so more of the same.
Don't do it twice.
Don't do it twice. Big heads. See, yeah, I understand.
You feel the same way about you, though,
Hey, well, thank you, Commissioner. We, the one thing I'll just highlight a little bit, we were involved in the legislative session, of course, with the transportation bill that was passed, and we're quite pleased with it because of a couple of different aspects, but one of them will give us an opportunity if we choose to accept it, which I think we will, which is the opportunity to impose a 0.25% tax, sales tax, half of which would go to transit, half of which would go to transportation. I'm sure you heard about it. And we have this little SunTrans system that frankly needs to grow. We're serving about 50% of our geography, but far fewer in terms of our residents. As Mayor Stan Smith, you still here, Stan? As he indicated earlier, we have been talking a lot about the possibility of adding to our system, and we'll have to see how that works. But I think what this legislation will help us do as a city, and as hopefully, if we clarify with the tax commission and perhaps the legislature in a future session, we should be able to, I believe, expand our system. It already includes what we would call Mayor Hart, a commuter route to Ivans. We would like to be able to extend also to Washington, and eventually, maybe sooner than later, with potential hotspot funding as far as to Hurricane and clear to Springdale. So as you've heard a lot of the previous input, you can tell there are lots of issues with tourism as well as employees in getting from whether it be St. George, Washington, Hurricane up to through to Springdale. So I think that transit is going to be even for sleepy old St. George, is going to be a much bigger deal in the near future. So, yes, the dragon has been awakened. In fact, there's a story about St. George dragon. We'll talk to you about it sometime. Anyway, we appreciate your past and future partnerships, and we'll need you. And again, thank you and everyone that works to make transportation a success in Southern Utah.
We appreciate working with you too, Mayor.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak to the commission, please? And thank you for joining us yesterday and today.
Sorry I'm out of uniform today.
You may not recognize
Jeff Brave, Zion National Park. First of all, thank you all for being here and having a meeting here in Springdale. It's great to have you. I'd like to add the kudos to our UDOT friends that work with us nearly daily on all kinds of projects and interesting proposals and those sorts of things. So, Rick, thank you, and thank all your staff. It's great. We talked with you, I believe, last year about some funding proposals that we were working in collaboration with Washington County, Town of Springdale, and thankfully our sponsor for a U.S. Department of Transportation grant was UDOT to help fund replacement of the Zion Canyon shuttle system. My understanding is that we were not successful, but we will not quit trying. And we appreciate the partnership because that's how these things happen. Talking about a substantial amount of money. The shuttle bus system that we're running, these buses are in their 19th year, and they have a lot of miles on them and move a lot of people. As many people, according to our numbers, as a good-sized city. So when we're talking about 4.5 million visitors and people on and off the system, we're moving a lot of folks. So we appreciate UDOT sponsorship. We get support from the governor, our congressional delegation. That's what we need, and we'll continue to look for more opportunities. Carlos, thank you very much. We are moving lots of folks, and we have a lot of challenges with our visitation. And the hotspot funding ideas and proposals, we certainly are interested in following up and working with everyone on those. We think the connectivity, as Mayor Pike talked about, the shuttle and transit system is going to be very important for the future. And we'll continue to be part of it. Relative to the number of folks that we're hosting in the park, we are working on a visitor use management plan as we speak. One of our challenges is capacity. How many folks can we handle at one time in different areas of the park? And of course, some areas of the park we have visitors highly concentrated, of course, here in Zion Canyon being the principal one. And so, as we're moving people with our shuttle system, we're running during peak periods, shuttle buses leaving every 5 minutes from our visitors center. We're moving 100 people into the canyon. So how many folks can we handle and maintain the visitor experience and take care and conserve the park resource? Those are 2 parts of the National Park Service mission. So we have some big challenges here. We have proposals and thoughts out there about reservation systems and permits and timed entry and all kinds of things. But what we're working on right now particularly is that capacity question. How many folks can we handle? So we know that UDOT works with those questions when they're looking at roadways and those sorts of things. And so we hope that our planning will help in the future toward looking at questions with SR9, SR59, and connecting routes and those sorts of things. So again, thank you. And at any time, if we can answer any questions, we look forward to continue working with our UDOT
friends here.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Yes.
So if you cannot replace your shuttle system, which is 19 years old, what are you going to do? What is the alternative? At what point do you have to say, I'm done?
Well, we could not manage without the shuttle system. That's a fact. In 1977, the master plan down at Zion pointed out that we needed some sort of transportation system. It took us all the way to 2000 to implement the system we have now. And back then, we were dealing with about 2.6, 2.7 million visitors. And now at 4.5. There's no way we can do it. And so the question is, what are we going to do? And so obviously we're putting in funding proposals as we have. We're talking with our congressional delegation and trying to find a source of funding. There are alternative funds available in the National Park Service budget. Those we were going to use a significant portion of what's available nationally to match what we were requesting in the funding proposal to UDOT to USDOT. So this is a huge issue that's coming, and it's right now.
How much of your collective money at the gate, at the sign particularly, goes to your replacement of those services?
Well, 75, if someone pays a $30 entrance fee, which is good for 7 days, 75% of that goes toward operating the shuttle system. Okay, it's a big ticket program. If we're not able to find a large chunk of money to begin replacing, then we're going to be in a situation where we're going to have to try to set aside some of that entrance fee revenue to replace the buses. The way that would work is we would only be able to buy 1 to 2 buses a year. It would take us 17 years to replace the system. But if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. But in the meantime, those buses continue to age. And we're seeing right now that, more maintenance on those buses. We've been very fortunate. We have a contractor who operates the system. We own the buses, they operate the system. Who's taken superb care of these things. That's why they've lasted 19 years. But we're beginning to find that we can't get replacement parts for some things in the bus, whether it's a wheelchair lift, some of the engine parts. We're buying all the engine parts we can find that are available for this type of vehicle and stockpiling. So that's the situation.
Thank you very much. How many buses you
got? We have 29 bus and trailer units, and then we have, I believe it's 9 single buses. So if you haven't seen them, there's a power unit and then there's a trailer unit. All together, they seat 68. Frequently, we're running loads of 90 plus.
Okay, so the key for today, what's the most wonderful thing you can do
In terms of replacing buses?
Yeah. It's just what you like to have. Feel like you're the king and you can do this. You can do it all in front of
Okay. Well, what our proposal has been, we did an analysis of 13 different alternatives relative to replacing the shuttle bus system. From a life cycle cost, that's all costs, over a 20-year period. The most cost-effective is to replace our current propane-powered buses with battery electric buses. They're more expensive on the front end, much cheaper to operate, and so in the long term, they're cheaper. But the initial investment is $25 million. That includes the infrastructure for charging and all those things.
Jeff, it just seems to me we have to cut down the number of visitors. We're too dang popular. Well, they can't keep going like this. Let's send them to Smoky Mountain.
Well,
it
this,
might, if it gets so crowded, people are gonna say, hey, don't go to Zion, you can't get in.
we're already seeing people that leave. And we've actually had hotel owners tell us that people have come back and checked out and left. We're getting more complaints, but it goes back to this capacity question. We have to establish the capacity. How many folks can we handle at one time in a given location that meets the visitor experience needs particularly? Because that's what we're seeing is that the visitor experience is declining.
Well, thank you, you do an incredible job. Just keep it up and more.
Well, again, opportunities to partner, that's how these things happen. And so we appreciate Carlos and Rick and all the UDOT staff. Thank you.
I have one question for maybe Carlos. I know that we filed a private grant and we have a national park with Leslie. What is the next opportunity to do the same?
Yeah, we're going to keep looking as those come available. The sense we're getting is there's probably not going to be much of a continuation of the private program. Perhaps this.
Thank you, Joe. As you know, President Trump has proposed an infrastructure program that still has to be refined, I guess, and has to become something that Congress owns. So Congress is in discussions right now. I've heard all kinds of things about how this might proceed, but that might be an opportunity if Congress chooses to actually follow through on that recommendation and find the money to do it. So we're committed to work with Jeff and the National Park Service to look for those opportunities to see if we can find those grants, because I believe, like Jeff does, that we have to have an operating transit system. We were in the same position, well, we still are. Our snow plows, we turn in at 16, 17 years of age, and they cost a lot more money to maintain when they get past that 9.5, 10-year age is really our break point. And the other problem is that they tend to break down when we need them when it's snow. And so, the legislature looked at life cycle cost. They presented a business case in the 2017 session, and they agreed to help double the amount of money we spent in buying trucks. So it's going to take us many, many years to be able to get it down to about a 9.5 to 10-year point at which we could turn those trucks in. Lower cost of ownership, and we'll have them operating when we need them. So I understand what Jeff's dealing with right now.
Thank you very much.
Ron Whitehead, Washington County Public Works. I just wanted to say thanks to the Commission and UDOT for coming down here. The bus tour yesterday was a great thing for you to see. I drive through pretty much all the improvements you've made in the last few years on a regular basis, and they've all been excellent for helping improve traffic flow and capacity. The Dixie Drive to Bloomington, widening the freeway across the river is great. I drive Bluff Street every day, going and coming from work just to see what's going on in there. And they're moving along. Even yesterday after I got back, it had rained more and there was mud and water running down there. They were still out there moving. That'll be a great project too. We appreciate it.
You mean there wasn't sunshine there?
There was sunshine. Unfortunately, it was just after you guys were there. As you noticed when we pulled into the convenience store there in Washington, there were 3 police cars on one side of the bus and 3 police cars on the other. I'm starting to wonder if I should have been on that bus with you guys. I don't. But Commissioner Kramer just hit everything we're talking about there. All the people are going to come in. It doesn't matter what we do. We've been advertised and liked and reliked, and everybody wants to come see a beautiful part of the world. And so the capacity stuff we're planning to do in the hotspot funding year office will make significant strides toward moving traffic to other areas. The growth is coming. The BLM is planning dispersed camping both along Sheep's Ridge Road and Plains Road. And you guys are already ahead of us on 59. We know you're working on some widening, passing lanes and some shoulder pull-offs and stuff. So that will help too. I mean, it would be nice to have a bigger road. I just don't think the capacity is there yet to get a bigger road. But it's nice to know you're already planning that stuff. Anytime we can help you with the tour of any of these facilities, we'd love to do it. Again, thanks for coming down. If we can help with any of that, let us know. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? If not, then, please.
Yes, Rich Kopp over in Apple Valley. Has there been any thought to maybe an alternative road from 15 to get into the Kanab area to get the buses and the big trucks off of 59? Because coming up that hill is really tough, especially the big dumper trucks. You know, and a truck has to go all the way, if they're coming from Vegas or wherever, they got to come all the way through Hurricane, up the hill, and then through Apple Valley to get towards anywhere further east. If they're going to Kanab or Colorado City or wherever they're going over there, an alternative route I think would be beneficial to help get the trucks and buses off of 9 through Hurricane, and also to get them off of 59.
Let's move in our agenda now to the UDOT update. Randy and Jason. We otherwise would have an FHWA report, but Ivan has said he's going to load it up in April and talk to us then.
The login is right on the screen, or is right on the.
They put it on you.
Meeting 1, capital M. The number 1.
Top secret.
Right on
Looks
the
like
laptop. Look out.
we'll be changing that one after the meeting.
You're up at the top already. There's a tab pulled up.
Policy vote. Your strategic direction is to
Go to the next one over on the tabs.
the one that says transportation.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner, I'll be fast given the time today, but a couple things I just want to make sure that we point out. This is the second time we presented this report. It is in the Transportation Commission tab in the strategic document, so you won't get anything that you'd like there. We have projects. We have 6 projects that are past due, 19 that will advertise in the next 60 days, and then the rest of these numbers just really go to show what we got coming up, and they just show the effort that's out there, especially in the regions, of what will happen. And our advertising performance is really good. We advertise pretty much everything on time. We have a goal of 85%, and we hit 95%, and that's where we're running now. These are all the projects that have advertised over the last month. We have 23 projects there, and so you can see, I think that somehow, for some reason, the total has disappeared, but it's well over $100 million of projects that have advertised there. And so some of you might have an interest. There's quite a few Region 4 projects that are actually in this area today on this list. So this is the chart that I think we like the best. Is that the black shows projects that are past due. The green are projects that are already advertised. And so these have even advertised early that we show. The blue, these are projects that are in scoping. We haven't set a final date for them yet. And the blue are projects that will advertise, and we hope they'll advertise on time. We do, and you can drill down if there's anything you'd like to see here and want to understand any of those projects that are unadvertised or late, or projects that will advertise within the next 60 days. You click on this tab, and it'll give you a table of all that information. And it's pretty useful. We use it a lot. Our project managers and program managers use it the most. This is how they manage their program. You can see our construction program is still growing. Our dollars are going to be being infused by the bonding, the increased program. We have 169 projects currently active in the state of Utah right now. Our contractor payments are pretty low. They usually always are around this time of year. They'll be picking up, and I suspect we'll start to see this trend really grow as we get into some weather changes.
With our time and our contract estimates, we like to see these two bars about the same height. And as long as we do that, we know that where our estimates and our bids are coming in really close to each other, and so I think that's the key to this chart. And so I'll leave that with you unless you have any questions.
It's a lot of projects.
Lot going on, yeah, lot going on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jason.
Let me apologize in advance. There's a lot of information. I'm going to be taking a long time. So. Oh, no, this will be quick.
He's got his 3-minute gavel going.
It's on the website. Yeah, it's on the website.
Only 3 buttons. 3 buttons.
So Shane yesterday stole over my thunder and talked about this. And, the numbers are looking very good for this year. Granted, it's very early in the year. We're at 98% of our overall score. I think that's a little off because it's showing that our equipment damages were meeting our goal. I've been talking to the folks back home this morning about trying to get that corrected. Because when we go down here a little bit lower, you'll see that we have not met our target. So that should be all good. There should be some of the target remaining in that category. As you go down and take a quick look at our traffic fatalities for the year, for this week, we're looking a lot better. It's been a rough week. And we all, the message there is that we need to stay diligent. We need to make sure we're buckled up. We need to make sure we're not distracted. And we're driving for the conditions. We're not driving based off of how heavy our foot can be. So, still a lot of work to do there in that area, but we are meeting our target currently. I just wish we were really blowing that number out of the water. The one thing on this whole thing that I'm most proud of, I won't say I'm most proud of, but something to be very proud of for the department is our employee injury rate. You can see it's crybaby hill based off what I heard earlier. It's very steep and it's going in the right direction down. So I appreciate all the work that our employees are doing, looking out for each other, making sure that the area that they're in is safe and that the employees dealing with them are safe. So that's just a testament of the hard work that they're doing. Not so much anything that we've done here to make them safe. They can only make themselves safe. So I appreciate that greatly. I'm not going to spend any time on the serious injuries and traffic crashes because we know that information tends to lag a few months. And just to point out our one fault, you can see here that our January, February numbers are exceeding our target rate, our target. So that's what I'm saying, that part of the data doesn't seem to be matching that. But that is the risk you take when you're running a live web page and this sort of presentation. But we'll get that fixed. But even if that was there, it's a very small part of our overall target. I think it's 5% of the weighting. So we'll still be in the high 90s as far as moving target. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Jason?
I have just a comment. I notice on the news when they're talking about traffic fatalities and things like that, they're always talking about whether or not those lost had their seatbelt on or not. Is the number still around 50%? If people wear their seatbelts, even at least 50% of those people?
Yes. I mean that's.
How do we all help make that statistic more?
We look at that number. We do surveys on the number of people wearing them, and it continues to be a fairly high percentage. 89% of folks are wearing their seatbelts, and we've seen that increase, especially with the legislative change and actually making that a law. So that has helped greatly. I can't preach it enough. I tell friends, I tell neighbors. It's almost probably a little corny. They probably get a little tired of me at sporting events with my kids, and I say, "All right, make sure everyone's buckled up on their way home." You know, I mean, I think that's what we can do. You have a forum with SUU, and hopefully they're taking that opportunity at different educational institutions. to promote that, because at the end of the day, any of those numbers they're very difficult. And granted, it's not going to be the solution all the time, but it's definitely helping. So between the seatbelts and the distracted driving, putting your phone down, that's
the biggest thing the commission does for this educational effort is you're going to consider.
Yeah, because Jason couldn't walk over and hand it to me.
I wasn't paying attention to what you're saying.
The most important thing is, you saw yesterday during the workshop that there's going to be a recommendation for funding the Zero Fatalities campaign. And that campaign is really the department's effort in partnership with the Department of Public Safety, Department of Health, to get into as many high schools. I don't know how many, Jason, we're doing now, but we have an awful lot of high schools we get into, and we meet with the new drivers. They first get their permit and one of their parents have a parents' night. And that's a very comprehensive education program that we have that we're trying to get the word out. So, the best thing we could do is drive that number from 89% up into the high 90s, and we're going to be saving, I think we're going to get under 200 fatalities if we could do that. So that's, I think, from a commission's role is, please, that's a little advertisement, but please seriously consider the funding of that Zero Fatalities program.
When the seatbelt law was introduced, it was just a trial basis, wasn't it? I want to know how difficult it was to make that next jump.
It was when it was originally, what the legislature did is they went from a secondary offense to a primary offense, and that was in 2015. And when it was originally passed, it was to be sunset in 3 years. During last year's legislative session, there was a bill that was proposing to eliminate safety inspections. And it ran into some concerns from folks about whether or not they should do that or not. And one of the compromises during that process was to eliminate the sunset provision on the primary seatbelt law. And so it is now fully in place and it will not be sunset.
Jason, what amount of our fatalities, what percentage are caused or involve drivers over the age of 80 or 85? I have a 97-year-old father-in-law that took Herculean efforts to get his driver's license taken away from him. He was not safe. So I'm just curious. I'd love to see that reduce, that age. I'd love to see that age of driver's license reduced to 85 or 80.
Okay, for a young guy like you.
Yeah.
Good for yourself.
Yeah. Those of us who are tipping that number. Self-driving cars.
So what you were just asking, I don't have that number off the top of my head. What I would offer to the commission is I'll bring back, and I've been staying away from diving too deep into the weeds on some of these statistics. I'll bring back a little bit more information on the breakdown of some of these fatalities and what we've seen over the last year as far as age breakdowns, seatbelt use. The one that I'm always hesitant to report on is distracted driving because it's not something that's really investigated very easily. It's a difficult thing to find out whether you were looking at your phone or doing whatever distracted type of behavior was around. You mentioned the self-driving cars. I was just reading an article recently. Volkswagen in 2020 is coming out with a level 5, which is a fully autonomous vehicle. And they're going to be coming faster than I think a lot of people anticipate, but not as fast as I would like, just because of what these numbers. There's still very, very much we can do without self-driving cars to get this number lower. And I look forward to those improvements as culture changes and what becomes acceptable behavior and what's unacceptable behavior. So hopefully, while people talk about and complain about others using their phones, probably while they're tweeting while they're on their phones. So we just need to fix that part of it.
So, Commissioner, we'll bring back, I'll speak up.
We'll on it anyway.
We'll bring back, we have information on routes, counties, time of day, weather, ages. So we'll bring that information back and basically provide that for the report next
I just applaud the seriousness with which, Jason and UDOT feels responsible for lives, on the road. And every time something happens, they look at what UDOT can do first before they call people stupid for being on their phone or eating their lunch or putting on. I've had to stop putting on mascara in the car since I joined this commission. It's been a problem.
I was telling Terry on my way in that I had to pull over on the side of the road because my cell phone lost signal. I couldn't listen to the Syracuse game on the way here, and I was a little worried, but I couldn't mess with the phone, so I pulled over and had cell phone signal. So then I had proceeded at a safe speed until I got cell phone signal again.
Changing behavior. Mascara?
Any other questions for Jason? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's move now to put that up there. Let's move now to the business items for the commission. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda comprising the approval of the minutes and the return of about a little over $2 million in the funding.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Yeah.
Bill, you lead us through these few development items, and then Lyle will be on deck.
Okay, so I'll be doing the STIP amendments number 6 in item 9. First one is 9A-1. This is a Region 1 request, approval to add scope and additional funding in the amount of just over $331,000 for the SR60, SR26 to SR168 project that's currently funded at $675,000. The existing pavement in this section has deteriorated faster than expected. There's funding available in their 2017 program to address this. Also, the additional scope is to extend the sidewalk under I-84 on the east side of SR60. And this will be contingent upon execution of a betterment agreement with Riverdale City. There's currently a sidewalk on the west side of SR60. Got a project location map where it's located at. And so we'd like to seek approval to add the add additional funding and scope to the SR60, SR26 to SR68 project.
Move for approval. Been moved and seconded that this funding addition be approved. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. That's been approved.
The next item is 9A-2. Region 2 is requesting approval to add the SR68 90th South to 126 South restripe project for $2 million. This project would restripe Redwood Road from 90th South to 126 South in 7 lanes. 2 7 lanes is currently at 5. This addresses the choke point in this area. Just north of this section, it already has 7 lanes, and south of this section, there's a construction project that's going to finish up and have 7 lanes as well. So this makes it one continuous section of 7 lanes. This request also follows the completion of an active transportation study that was done by WFRC that addresses the mobility in this area for active transportation. Basically, that's shifting the active transportation to the corridors that parallel this route. WFRC also recently approved moving this project in phase 1 long-range plan. So the scope of this work includes grinding off the existing striping and restriping it to the 7-lane configuration. It includes the grinding replacement of 220 pavement markings at existing intersections, repair of spalls in the area, about 3% of the grind area, and there's several utility adjustments that are needed, as well as the air and noise analysis of the environmental document. The funding is available, the $2 million in Region 2 the obligation fund. Got a project map, shows the location where this is at. So we'd like to seek approval to add the SR68 90th South to 126 South restart as a new project.
Been moved and seconded that this $2 million
yes.
be be added to the STIP as a new project for restriping Redwood Road from 90th to 126th Ave. Any further discussion?
Does this kind of complete the Redwood Road project?
I know this will complete the 7-lane section for that whole area there, but as far as
There's still more north, right?
more plans.
There's actually some construction between 126th to Bangor.
I'm gonna have to talk to my reason two boys. So we do have a construction project on Bangor Highway up to 90th South that will widen it to 7 lanes. And this will complete that. Yes, it will complete Redwood Road from Bangor Highway all the way to 215.
And then we'll start over.
That's I guess maybe that's where I was getting to.
I'm not sure what to say.
Any further comments or discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, that's also been added.
The next item is 9A-3. This is a Region 2 request to add scope and an additional $3 million to Little Cottonwood Canyon Environmental Impact Study. Phase 1 was funded at $2 million. It took it up to the alternative development. This phase is going to be completed in August of this year. Phase 2 will complete it from the alternatives development through the final record of decision. And the $3 million is needed for that second phase.
This is that project that Nathan talked about earlier in the recreation hotspot, where we refer, I move for approval. Been moved and seconded to this be approved for the second phase of this EIS. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor? Will there be another phase?
This will complete the environmental process.
And as part of the environmental process, there's always some build alternative and no build option. So if one of the build alternatives is chosen in the record decision, then there will be another request.
Is this the first of the monies that have come out of the hotspots?
It's part of the hotspot money, yes.
You allocated planning money to
Right.
those other areas.
Right.
This one has had the benefit of what you refer to as the mountain accord process for about the last 4 to 5 years, working through what we're doing now here in these other areas that haven't done planning.
Further questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
The next item is 9A-4. This is a Region 2 request. Approval to add a new project. It's SR 138 Stansbury Park underpass. This would be for $400,000 additional funding. The project is a local government partnership with a project value of $1.8 million. This is being installed to address growing safety concerns with school kids and pedestrian crossings in this area, which continues to increase in density. This funding is available from transportation funds. This would be the $400,000 from those funds, with the rest being the local responsibility. The project location map. SR 36 is just out here, and this is 138 heading towards Grants. So I'd like to seek approval to add the SR 138 Stansbury Park underpass partnership new project to the 20th and State. No, I'm not sure of the local funds, but I don't. There's not a Burger King that maybe there is. I don't know.
That's another location. That was a different location.
I'll
I'm
move to.
worried about Bill because he drives home.
Okay. Move to approve. Second. We moved and seconded that this project be added also to the STIP. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Approved as well.
The next item is 9A-5. This Region 3 request approval to add $3.5 million to the UDOT bed crossing project. It's currently funded at just over $14 million, and this funding is available from the transportation fund balance. The location, you guys know where this is at, I believe. We stopped there before and talked about this project. So we'd like to seek approval to add this additional funding of $3.5 million to the UDOT bed crossing project.
Is it gonna take $3.5 million to put the UDOT line?
No.
No. Can we talk about what the additional expense is?
Yes.
Or maybe even back up a little bit.
Can we have a motion? I'll make a motion to approve it. Second. Moved and seconded that this be approved. Now, any questions? Donna, I think you've got.
Yeah, well, just mostly to help us understand why the additional cost, because I remember on the legislative side of things, this didn't have a price tag this big, so I'm just trying to understand the why of that.
So originally, when we put together the estimate for this bridge, we had agreed between all the parties that between UDOT and UTA, we would cover the transportation-related costs, so kind of the basic structure, and UVU was going to cover any of the enhancements. And then as we got further into it, that balance shifted a little bit, and the basic structure itself is actually more costly than we originally estimated. So we bumped up our number to cover that basic bridge cost, and then UVU's money can still go towards the enhancements for making it covered and security cameras and lights and some of those things. So our money goes towards the basic parts of the structure, and theirs will go towards the enhancement.
And where are we in the process? I'm just thinking about what we talked about yesterday. This is intended to be just a single span with no support in the center?
It actually, I believe it's got 2 piers in it. It actually, we have to cross I-15 as well as the railroad, so it's a 1,000-foot structure, but it does have a couple of piers in it. So a 1,000-foot pedestrian structure is fairly lengthy, so we didn't expect the cost to be quite what they are, but to actually build the basic structure, again, it's more than we had originally planned.
Given the headlines of the last day, what happened down in Florida, there will be extreme caution. You can just bet on it from the engineers, so I think the money will be well spent. This has got to be the longest pedestrian bridge in the state. I'm sure it will be.
The longest pedestrian structure?
Yes. I think so. How do we, are there others in the nation longer than this? Got to be right up close to the top.
I don't know how this relates from a nationwide perspective, but I think it's important to note that while it is 1,000 feet long, there won't be a 1,000-foot span. There will be a span that goes over the railroad, and then there'll be a span that goes over one lane or one section of I-15. So there'll be multiple spans that add up to 1,000 feet total. It won't look like the one in Florida. That was a cable-stay bridge. It's just be a normal cable-supported bridge. This will be more traditional, what we normally look at. So I think it's a much different scenario than what happens in the Florida bridge, but it is extremely long, and because of that, it does take some extra cost to get there. You did see reference to this yesterday in the legislative action. A year ago, the legislature had put $4 million into the SIB fund for UTA to be loaned the money to invest in this structure. UTA said they can cover that with their own money now. So it will no longer be a loan. So UTA is going to bring $4 million to the project on top of the 14. UVU is bringing about three. So it's not a $14 million project. It's much broader than that. The 3 parties making up. That $4 million loan goes away. UTA covered it with their cost. And then we are directed to spend $4 million or transfer $4 million to Vineyard to build a transit station down at Vineyard. So that's how that kind of all went this session.
Okay. Thank you for the.
No, just 3 parties: UVU, UDOT, and UTA. Nope. It's not any part of it. The switch, the exchange to Vineyard, it does go to Vineyard, but it is for a transit stop in the city that connects Front Runner there. When the Front Runner line was built, UTA skipped over this part. There was a planned stop there. They had some infrastructure there. They just didn't build it because there was no access to it. Now that there's access to it, and I don't know if you've been over the Vineyard lately, there's a few homes over there now. So it's a good place for a stop. Plus, UVU is building a bunch of facilities over there.
UVU has about 250 acres there, and we'll be building facilities and over the next few years, expanding buildings in that area. So it will enable people coming and south to UVU for education and get off at the Vineyard campus or at the Orem stop for the Main campus.
Pretty unique that you connect two university campuses with a farm line, with a rail line, but that's what this is.
That's what it's going to do.
So thank you for clarity.
Any other further questions or comments about this addition?
While you're talking, Bob looked up, Googled really quick what the longest bridge in the country was, and it's in Arkansas, and it's 4,200 feet long, and they call it the Big Dam Bridge. Yeah. Pedestrian bridge.
How long I'll call for a vote then. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. That's all for that. We got a couple of information items.
Yes. So the first one is Region 1. We'd like to combine the funding and scope of the I-15 barrier extensions, Weber/Davis project, into the I-15 Centerville to Ogden slab replacement project. This combines a small project into the limits of a larger paved project, and we get some efficiencies in doing so. The project location of the one, see the spots there, and then the other project, they fall within that area, so it makes sense to do this. So, any questions on this? This is FYI. Okay, next item is also information we said we'd bring back to the commission where we had swept the funding on the UDOT penalty. I'm going to go ahead and go to the table.
Was this one related to the electric bikes?
Yes.
That you had to worry about because now you have an open container on an electric bike.
Yeah.
You incurred this penalty.
I saw a hat where you could do that. You drink some straw. Anyways, so just to recap on this, we didn't lose any money per se. What it did, it just shifted it from NHPP to HSIP. And so the HSIP funding went up just over $8 million. So we had to make up the difference, and it's in the green, or where the areas where we can make those differences up. That's where the NHPP funding was. Also, since we had talked to the commission, we had the state retained right-of-way. Basically, it's the pieces of property that were purchased with federal funds that were surplused and sold. We got money back for that. That qualified to, we needed to put it back on a federal aid eligible route. So we used the first part of that we put it on the I-80 and SR-36 bridge replacement project. This allowed us to take that amount of NHPP off, which reduced the need equally across all the regions. So we did that one first, using that state retained right away. And then the rest came from the good bids that we've been bringing to the commission and sweeping into their efficiency pots that we see every month. And so from Region 1, we took it from their deobligation fund in that amount. And Region 2, it came from their deobligation fund, as well as the Transportation Solutions Program and their 2016 Pavement Rehabilitation Program, and that got to their amount that they needed. And then Region 3 from their deobligation fund, it's the amount that we needed from them. And then lastly, Region 4, we had their program deobligation fund, and then their 2016 preservation and rehabilitation programs to make up the difference. Again, this allowed the programs to continue to get their projects out, but swept some of the good bids that we've been receiving.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Bill. So this means that where the money came from was the paving program. The paving programs now can continue to go forward as planned without any impact to them. We still need to obligate the penalty money. So the commission will still see about $8 million worth of safety projects, whether they are embedded in other projects or standalone projects. And we need to get out over the next 6 months.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I know the regions are looking at, even in their pavement programs, where they have opportunities to do safety. It's part of those pavement jobs, and they're looking for those opportunities to add that funding to it.
All right.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lyle? You've got three items for us. The real estate agreement.
That's fun.
The long part. All right. I have three items on the agenda, the final three items on the agenda today. And the first one is a quarter preservation application for you to consider. As is customary, review the fund balance really quickly. The balance as of the date of this, our most recent balance is $11.7 million. We have a $4.3 million reimbursement from Mountain Corridor that's in progress. I'm going to need another hand.
With a voice like yours, Robert. Well, the problem is that folks on the internet can't hear his voice.
Like that's a bad thing. All right, so we have revenue of about $964,000. For previous conversations that we've had with you, we've broken that out between the income from the motor vehicle rental tax and miscellaneous property management revenues that are generated. Then we have expenses of about $600,000, and those are netted out. Our fund balance as of the end of February was $16.4 million. And we have the applications you previously approved obligated funds for, totaling about $13.9 million. Let's continue to make progress as we go through the different stages of document prep, moving through the offer, and doing closing proceedings. So we're in the closing stages, and we're trying to whittle that list down as quickly as possible. Unobligated fund balance is $2.4 million. We have a single application today. It's a residence on Bangor at 6200 South. That is approved for obligation. We have $2.2 million remaining. Are there any questions on the fund balance today?
I have one question up there, and looks like we had one approved 2 years ago in March. Here on SR9. That was, Gateway Commercial. That's been sitting there for 2 years now. What's the progress on that particular one? Because it's a sizable purchase.
Yeah, so initially we had several strategies there. That $1 million, just to help with the historical knowledge here, was for an access only. They have an access on SR9 and they have a big piece of property. We had it appraised, we made the offer, and then we realized that it wouldn't be difficult for them to take some of that money and purchase an access through the property. Basically surrounds another property that has some trailer sales in it. And so we didn't want to make that payment and then have them use some of the money to buy an access through a neighbor. And we were trying to buy the trailer company so that we could have to assemble the entire property. They are not ready to sell, and so we sat down and had a conversation with our legal staff from the Attorney General's office, and we came up with a solution that we're actually doing right now, and that is we're not only purchasing that access, but we're also going to purchase like a protection strip all along SR9 and behind the trailer property, so that we effectively are purchasing the entire all access and the possibility for access along with SR9. So that was a solution I wish we thought of before recently, but it's a solution that appears to give us some closure for this.
Well,
Yes.
I can't remember what Diane said about that question around property that's on hold.
I think they're waiting for the project now, is that correct?
There's 2 other people on title, and we're just going to check with them.
Okay. It said that before the
Any other questions? All right, so let's move on to the application. And again, this is a property. I'll move to the map here real quick. It's on. We're getting ready to build a grade separated interchange at 6200 South in Bangor. And you can see we're going to need a tiny bit more right of way there to the west. And there's a property, there's a single family residence that's in the northwest quadrant of the interchange. This is a close-up. You can see there are several neighbors that will be impacted potentially as well. This gentleman purchased the property, fixed it up, and was going to sell it, and we would prefer to buy it while it doesn't have any residents in it so that it doesn't qualify for relocation and whatnot. We don't want to have to have somebody move 2 times really quickly, one voluntarily and one less than voluntary. So come to us, we had it appraised. It's a 1,500 square foot home built in the late 70s. We had it appraised for $239,000. It's currently vacant, which is beneficial for us. And so it was reviewed in the advisory council, and they come to say with the favorable recommendation, I'll be funding an amount of $239,000 from the fund so that we can make an offer to this gentleman and get the house before somebody that says.
Second. We moved and seconded that this acquisition be approved. Is there any further discussion or question?
Is this the first of the properties along that line that have been found?
Yes, this property, it's actually still in the environmental stage. So I'm trying to get out ahead of it.
Please, we'll probably be 6 months away from outside to be converting this from core preservation to actual level. If you could put the project, some of this is in the current. That is all of it. You should turn it on.
Further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that acquisition's been approved.
Thank you. All right, let's go to the tab 11. This is a jurisdictional transfer. So the background here is that back in the 1960s, back in the 1960s, we created a new road. And this is the old Highway 91 that Hurricane City and Washington County have been maintaining and using for the last half a century. And recently, while Region 4 was doing some work in the area, they discovered that we've never formally transferred jurisdiction of the old Highway 91 to the local municipalities and local county. And so we'd like to rectify that today by submitting to you a resolution to formally jurisdictionally transfer those 2 segments of old Highway 91 to the local governments.
You may remember we heard reference to this transfer both yesterday in our tour and earlier in our meeting today.
Yeah, I think we covered the basics pretty well. I move to approve this transfer.
Been moved and seconded that this transfer be approved. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the final one.
Yeah.
Yes.
I get to second first.
The final agenda item today is a property exchange on the I-15 Tech Corridor in Lehigh and Utah County. Let me go to the map here real quick. All right, so we're looking at, this is the west side of I-15 and south side of SR 92. And basically today, the frontage road comes up here, goes down, and then parallels I-15 down towards the point of the mountain. And this project will move the frontage road through this property owner's property, right along the side in front of, or on the west side of a 5-story building he's in the process of building. If you drive by there, you'll see a nice big 5-story building that looks like it's about half to 3/4 complete, and we are putting a nice frontage road right through his front door. So that will involve abandoning this portion of the old frontage road since we're realigning it to the west. And the appraisal came in at about $8 million. And $3 million for the land and $5 million because of what the project does to the rest of the property. And so as we were looking at it, in Utah, we have a different, our constitution says that we pay for property taken and damages. Unlike the federal constitution, where it's just property taken. And so we have the property is about $3 million and then damages to the remainder that the property owner is keeping are about $5 million. And we can offset those damages with what we call cost to cure. And so you can see a lot of his parking was contemplated being where we are going to acquire it. And we have this piece of property over here we bought for the extension of that frontage road. We're going to keep that so we can put the frontage road on it. And we have this property here between the frontage road and I-15 where this would be great replacement parking for this property owner. It's not as good as the property that he's giving up for the road, so it will only offset a little bit of it. So when we crunch the numbers, we can pay $5 million in damages, or we can give him a portion in cash, and then this replacement property, and we end up saving about $1.3 million if you allow us to do this exchange. So I come to you today with a proposal to allow us to pay cash and this property, and we will save about $1.3 million in lieu of having to pay all the damages in cash.
Been moved and seconded that this property exchange be approved. Is there further discussion? Who is the property?
It's a gentleman by the name, I want to say Patterson, but I believe it's actually Mendenhall.
WSI. WSI.
That's a busy area. Now, does this fit in with the, does this fit in with the plans that are being prepared for the expansion of I-15 along this area there? So this fits well with what's being planned on the tech corridor improvements there to this intersection of SI-92. Okay. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, that's been approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes the business items. We have a couple of informational items. Just a reminder to the commission members, if they have not responded to either Michelle or Heather, your report for committee meetings during the last month. And then we have upcoming commission meetings. Next month, we continue on April the 12th and 13th. Thursday, most of the day, and Friday during the commission meeting. We conclude our workshops. We go through the specific projects that we started yesterday. In the review, we come up with specific projects in each of those spending categories that will be part of the STIP that we will move forward. And so it's important that we make it, and I'm assuming it'll be all day long, so let's plan on probably all day on that Thursday and Friday for the workshop to be concluded for this cycle and for this next coming year, and then the commission meeting on Friday. That'll be in April. Then we have the meeting May 10th and 11th in Kaysville coming up, so let's get that on our calendars as well. Is there any further comments or business to be brought before the commission? If not, yeah, and I even see the sunshine. We better hurry and get out there before the clouds cover up again. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate your presence.
Lots of notes.